Salutations, free gunners, and welcome aboard the North Star. We'll be departing shortly for Crater City to rendezvous with Lennox and Hamar to retrieve the Blue Bunny. So suit up and get ready to... I'm sorry, I'm being informed that the mission is cancelled, and instead we're going to podcast about how we got shut down and what the shutdown of Concord means for PlayStation and the live service ecosystem more broadly. Weird. Anyway, I guess I should introduce the crew to the audience. Wait, we have an audience now? And we're called the Avocado Gamescast? Whatever, I'm Merve, and joining me today, he's a vacuum-wielding robot that looks like an inflatable claptrap. It's One-Off, also known as Wolfman Jew.
You play a Randy Pitchford game one time.
She's wearing a backwards baseball cap, and I think she's holding a sniper rifle. It's Vale, also known as QuinleyThorne.
It's a Monarch Long 52 sniper rifle, according to the press materials. So, that.
Which I'm sure you wrote. And finally, he's a red-faced power slammer with a mean rage rush. It's Starchild, also known as the Kappa.
I have no idea what that is.
Oh, he's the guy who looks like Drax.
Oh, well, there you go.
He looks like Drax, but I think he has the personality of one of the other Guardians.
Yeah, they kind of swapped it around just enough, I feel like, right? Like, he's the one who kind of looks like he's got thorns on him, right?
Oh, that's
No. That's Lennox.
Yeah, that's the guy who looks like a gender-swapped Gamora, but has the personality of Star-Lord, and Starchild is taking like the Star-Lord name, but applying it to Drax.
Yeah.
It's in the grand scheme of like comic books, it's like when Rob Liefeld left Marvel, so he made sure that all his comics would be titled X or Y so that they'd be next to all of his X-Men comics.
That's actually brilliant. There's no law that says he has to arrange his comics alphabetically. He can place them wherever he wants. I think this guy needs to expand his mind and also his capacity to draw feet, but mostly his mind.
He's probably swimming in Deadpool money now, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine he is, yeah.
Literally the only thing I know about Rob Liefeld is the feet. I don't know anything else.
You didn't learn the pockets yet, huh? You're not a connoisseur.
I read a lot of comics as a teen, so I have a lot of things to make fun of Rob Liefeld about. Unfortunately, we're kind of already backed up with things to talk about.
You know what I was a fan of? I was a fan of the Grifter. You remember the Grifter? It was like he's like a knockoff Gambit. He's like a thief, but it had like domino powers.
He's just a Grifter. Called
that? Yeah. His power is basically stealing.
That's not a superpower. You can just break into people's houses. That's not a superpower.
So I'll tell you a game me and my brother used to play like around Christmas. Like my parents would always hide, like every parent, they would hide the presents in the like their bedroom or their closet or whatever, right? And we'd play this game called I'm the Grifter. And we used to each I'm the Grifter. And when we go in, we'd sneak in and we would like get like a knife and cut the tape seam to see what we got for presents and then put the tape back right over the other, like my parents' tape. So that we can know what we got. So like every year around like December like 15th, my brother's like, "Hey, I'm the Grifter." I'm like, "All right, you're the Grifter." So that's some Rob Liefeld personal stories.
You're gonna have to incorporate this when you talk about the game you've been playing, right? You know that you have to do this.
I'm gonna incorporate it in my life. I'm just gonna bring it back.
That's a character in Kunitsu-Gami. Which I think this is a better segue. I actually had a segue planned because I was going to talk about how I had to look at the PlayStation Studios wiki article on Concord to learn everything that I put in the intro. And browsing fandom is like browsing something full of defilement that needs to be cleansed. And speaking of defilement that needs to be cleansed, Kunitsu-Gami. But your segue is better. So let's talk about Kunitsu-Gami, which Kappa and I have been playing. So Kappa, how far are you in Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess?
I'm a lot. I think I'm on like the third. I don't know how to describe it. Like the third tier, I guess. So I'm not as far as you. It sounds like.
Yeah, I think I'm about a little over halfway through the game at
Yeah,
this point.
it's a pretty short game, I think, overall. Like, I would say to get to the third tier maybe took me, shoot boy, trying to think, like maybe 5 hours, 4 hours. But a lot of that is the tutorial is a little bit confusing, I thought. But
Yeah, it does not tutorialize very well. I've heard it's about 15 to 20 hours on the whole.
oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense then.
But to explain what exactly Kunitsu-Gami is, it's an action strategy game, and I've described it as what if you took Brutal Legend and crossed it with the nighttime tower defense missions of Pikmin 4.
Yeah,
So, basic setup is this: you are a warrior named So, escorting a priestess who has to cleanse the area of ads on fandom, or defilement. So you have to escort her from the entrance of a level to a Torii gate at the end of the level, at which point she does a dance sequence, and then you wave a sword with like a pom-pom on the end, and somehow that cleanses the defilement. So during the day, the priestess moves very slowly while she's dancing towards the gate, and at night she freezes in place, and you have to defend her. During the day, you're gathering resources, freeing trapped villagers to help you. You're setting up traps and wards and weapons that you'll use to defend the priestess during the night. And in the night, the demons come out of various gates around the level and try to kill the priestess. So the combat is a mixture of you playing as So doing hack and slash combat and a little bit of bow and arrow stuff, and you assign villagers various roles to help you. So they might you might assign them to a long range role like an archer if you want them to like snipe flying demons out of the sky, or you might assign them to a more short range role like a woodcutter if you wanted to just like whack demons with an axe. There are also boss fight levels too, where you and the villagers, like the villagers you rescued in the preceding level, have to defeat a big enemy.
And the boss fights, I think, are where the game kind of shines, and where I feel like the game is kind of balanced for those levels more or less. But like the intra levels are kind of, I mean, like I said, I'm not very far. You're a lot farther than me, but the intra levels kind of feel like busy work a little bit sometimes. I think that's why I haven't kind of really pushed through it just yet. Whereas like you're just getting to the boss level to kind of feel the meat of the game, I guess.
Yeah, I think I felt that dynamic really early on, and then about I'd say once I got to kind of like the fourth, fifth level, that kind of flipped.
Next one's yeah.
Yeah, once they start giving you a lot more options and the levels get a little longer, and you have to take 3-4 nights to get the priestess to the gate at the end. That's when
that makes way more sense actually.
Oh yeah, and that's when you have a lot of strategic decisions about what resources to gather during the day, because you don't have time to gather them all. You don't have time to. There's this little carpenter guy who follows your little squad around, and he'll repair things like wards and barriers for you, but you can only repair so many during the day because there's not enough time.
He's like your builder in like a mobile game would be, or something like that.
Yeah, except for you don't have to pay 99 cents to get to do anything. So yeah, it actually does have a little bit of that like mobile game energy, both during the day and when you go repair the bases after you beat a level. And like that's kind of the third like bit of this this game. The really tertiary bit is once you complete a level, it turns into a base that you can then repair, and repairing different items in the base gives you resources like health packs, and the currency in this game is called crystals. It gives you currency essentially to buy rolls for your villagers at night.
Now I'm guessing that you being a little bit further, one question that I've had is how often are you using some of those things? Because I found the combat pretty easy so far. Now, I mean, again, not really far into it, but I haven't really found the combat to be too difficult. So I've been kind of cheating and like, well, I'm not gonna need these health packs and stuff like that. But is it kind of changing up for you later on?
what I find is that you don't need the health packs for so much.
Hmm.
You need them for the villagers because it'll
Okay.
assign them to specific roles, and you once a villager dies at night, you can't free them again until the morning.
Hmm.
It's like they get overtaken by the defilement, and then you have to free them again. So
That's been the only like I think my main knock on it has been the difficulty. I'm just not finding it very difficult. I know I got to get a lot further, but like it does seem like those missions are fairly straightforward.
it gets a lot harder. Like there is a difficulty spike that is essentially a test of if you understand how to command your squad,
Okay.
and when to kind of retreat, how do you kite enemies around the level. There is a boss that will test that, and that is the huge difficulty spike, and that's when the game gets interesting.
Okay. Cool.
I think it's the second or third boss where
Is that is the boss you're talking about included in the demo? Because I only played the demo.
did you get to Muka de Joro?
Which one is that? I think the ones that were available were like I think 2 or 3 levels, and the one where it stops is like this road that forks, and there's like a whole bunch of bridges and stuff that you have to like deal with, and you can choose which way to go. And then
I
thing
think
like
they're
so
not. It's not all the levels in order.
okay.
I think
Oh,
that's
okay.
it's like picking a level from early and picking a level from later is what I think.
Oh, okay. Okay. That
Yeah.
that explains a lot. Because
'Cause
that one felt a lot harder than the first two that they throw at you.
Yeah, it gets once you've beaten the big like difficulty spike boss, the game gets a lot more interesting. But that difficulty spike is really like you can get through the first few levels just hacking and slashing and
Okay.
barely engaging with anything involving commanding your squad around, and you don't really need to understand the enemy AI whatsoever. But once you get to that boss, understanding what the boss will target is a huge part of it.
Which I think is one of the reasons I was having a little bit of difficulty in the trying to figure out the tutorial because it felt like the tutorial was just like it didn't teach you a lot of that.
It teaches you nothing. It's
Yeah,
really
it
bad.
was kind of like
Yeah, it
well,
just kind of like give you pop-ups that show you information, but tells you not doesn't tell you how to implement it.
Yeah.
Like, here's your woodcutter. They cut wood, and then that's it. That's all you get.
That's basically yeah. And then even the when it's kind of teaching you it doesn't really teach you like the kind of the flow of combat, which I didn't notice until later. There was like a bunch of attacks that I just straight up wasn't using for so. And then I found out like I just was like, oh, that button is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell like what specific mode of attack the game wants you to focus on at first. Like, it's like, do you just want So to do everything and just have the people as backup, or are they supposed to have like a more involved role in this part? Like, that part wasn't conveyed as well through the demo. I think that's kind of why I fell off it. Also, I just don't have a mind for RTSs in general.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the exact same, and I do play a lot of RTS. I feel like it just wasn't a clear like you're saying. It doesn't kind of like walk you through. Okay, well, this is why you'd want to use this different attack. And it doesn't even show you that the attack exists in one case. And then one thing. This is gonna sound dumb. It took me a little bit to realize that the game was kind of pseudo 3D. I was wondering like why some of my attacks were missing. And I was like, this is weird. And then like
really weird. I could never get used to it. Like, do you ever get, because Merve, you mentioned that there are some basic features that are locked behind skill trees or something. Is one of those being able to have a top-down camera that just pans across the arena instead of having to move like the first-person camera or the third-person camera?
No, it's always going to be like a Pikmin 4 type of from the ground view. But to that point about not knowing whether the game wants you to concentrate on So or the villagers, I think the game actually wants to give you the flexibility. Like, essentially, do you want to go 75% So, 25% villager, or do you want to go 75% villager, 25% So? or anything in between. Like, you can't really go to one full extreme or the other, but they really want you to be able to emphasize one or the other. It becomes essentially like your character build. Okay. I don't know that this approach really works, in the sense that it becomes like your character build is too much of a commitment within level. You can't change your approach on the fly. Like, you can't say, I want to concentrate more on the villagers in the midst of a level. You can always like de-spec down a skill tree. So from one level to the next, you can change your approach. But within a level, you can't say, my hack and slash forward approach isn't working. Let me concentrate on commanding my villagers around. Oh, I don't have enough. I didn't spec into commanding my villagers around, so I'd have to de-spec, but I can't de-spec in the middle of a level. Okay. It's a little bit of a weird setup. Sorry, what was that?
You can't deploy villagers in the middle of the battle either, can you? You have to deploy them all like at the beginning and place them?
No, you can, if you just have to find your villager. Like, if you haven't assigned a role to a villager before nightfall, you just have to find where they are on the map, run up to them, and then you can assign them a role.
Oh, okay. So they're just always there. It's just more, did you give them something to do or not?
Yeah. Okay. They'll, like, if you haven't assigned them a role, they'll kind of run and hide somewhere, and you have to figure out where they ended up. But, like, they don't, like, disappear overnight.
That to me has been the most interesting part of the game, I guess, kind of that creating an army. That there's only a few JRPGs that really kind of hit that feel for me, but that's been pretty good so far. It's just I don't know. I guess I got to engage with the combat a little bit more.
What's been exciting for me is, and this is me just coming in as a Pikmin fan, like as a fan of, I played a little bit of normal RTSs when I was in high school, but like for me, it's the genre. I associate it most with this kind of very unconventional, like it's also kind of a Zelda game style, right, Merve?
I don't know if I'd say it's really Zelda-ish.
No. I mean, well, Pikmin.
Oh, Pikmin. Oh, yeah, Pikmin is.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Like the idea that it's an RTS, but it's also kind of this strange Zelda-y like adventure where you're like more juggling. It's an RTS and it's a character game.
Yeah.
So like and obviously there's been other games like this. I forget which of you mentioned compared it to Brutal Legend.
That was me.
Merve,
Kappa would probably compare it to his favorite game, Disintegration.
I gotta get on my Excite bike or whatever that thing was called. What was it called?
Was it Grav Cycle?
So, yeah, there you go.
I don't know, I've never played the game.
No, it's something like that. It really is. But man, oh boy.
So go ahead.
It's just really cool that this exists, right? Like,
hell yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's like this is this era where like Machine Games is struggling with its Wolfenstein game, so it has to make an Indiana Jones game, right? Like IO Interactive is made money with Hitman, but they kind of probably have to make James Bond. Like this is, as far as I can tell, a fully new IP, and for a combination of genres that are almost all considered extremely niche.
Oh yeah, like this thing is not going to be.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, like it's really small scale, especially for a company like Capcom. Like the fact that I remember when I saw the trailer for it, and like you see all the kaleidoscopic visuals and all of the dancing and all of that stuff, and then they're showing like published by and then developed by. I kept waiting to see. I'm like, okay, what third party developer did they throw money at? and one never showed up. I'm like, wait, they just made this? They just put this out there? That's incredible.
It feels like it's from the era where they were making Beautiful Joe and Okami, and when they were publishing Killer 7.
Studio, my beloved.
Yeah.
So Merv, is this one? It's from your write-up. It sounds like this one's going to be right outside of your game of the year when it all kind of comes down. But I think for me, I don't know, maybe somewhere in there. I think it's unique enough for me at least to kind of be in that conversation. But
Yeah, for me, I'm like, this is the game I like. I want to be very clear. I like what I think it's deeply flawed in a lot of ways. In particular, the combat, like the action combat, just isn't there. Like half your attacks don't connect. It's really frustrating. But I like what this game is doing enough that I could make my top 10 by the end of the year for sure. And I also think that even if I liked it a lot less than I do, I'd still be very happy it got made, because I want to see, I want to see Capcom publish more games like this. They have the financial security now from the massive success of Resident Evil and Monster Hunter. They can afford to take risks like this and make some of these AA titles that kind of fill niches that are you don't have to give them big budgets and they're not going to have huge sales, but if they're marketed well enough, they can make back their dev budgets and make a tidy profit.
Definitely. And the other thing is, this is like a perfect Game Pass game. This is that exact AA sweet spot that we were talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
PlayStation Plus, I'll probably get it. Like a just nice small scale AA random. It has the feel of a random game you rent at Blockbuster for the weekend, and you don't understand it, but it's the only game your mom let you pick, so you. And I love that.
So you pick it, and then you don't return it on time because you get addicted to it, and then your mom gets mad because you have to pay the fees.
Damn game, bring it back. Bring it downstairs. It's gotta go back.
We can find the jacket, the actual game.
It also just makes me think about the fact that this isn't something that realistically could be done by most smaller scale developers, even if it has but comparatively smaller scale perspective, right? You need a company with these resources, but you also need a company that's willing to do something like this. And I'm just
very Capcom looking too. I don't know how to describe it. It looks like they've got kind of their animation team on it, and it's got quality on it. It doesn't look.
It's the thing that really struck out to me, where I remembered, oh yeah, this is a Capcom game, is when you go into the tent and you can pick the food and you have the option to look at the food model. And I'm like,
yeah. I love that.
Oh, it's even better. When you
so pretty.
Part of building the base is unlocking new sweets that you can feed to the priestess Yoshiro, and they've animated her kind of curiously poking at the food and then grabbing the plate and then picking up a piece of the sweet with chopsticks. What they didn't animate was her actually putting the food in her mouth. So she brings the piece of the confection up to her lips, and then it just disappears, and then you can see her chewing.
I love that. I love that so much. Oh my god.
That reminds me of the thing of in Red Dead Redemption 2, if a person plays a guitar, they won't magically put the guitar away. They will physically have an animation where it becomes a separate model. But it's so much more fun here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I actually kind of love how janky it is. That they lovingly rendered all these sweets, and they've animated Yoshiro eating all of them. It's but not fully. It's great.
So a quick aside about Yoshiro in particular, and just kind of the presentation of the game. I like that the game is presented like it's kabuki and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things I immediately clocked about Yoshiro is that all of the characters really they're clearly being presented as they're being played by actors, and in traditional kabuki all of the actors are male, so Yoshiro is male, or at least the actor is male, and I thought that was really cool. I'm like, oh, they just put that out there and they just incorporated it. They did not explain it to anybody, and that's kind of the other thing that I like about this is when Japan kind of had a firmer grip on the kind of global industry as a whole, and they would just send us stuff. They would just send us stuff and not explain any of it, and you're just kind of like, what is this? What? does this mean? Why are they dressed like that? And they would just not explain it. It was great. I love that.
Isn't Kefka supposed to be like a jester, like a court jester,
Yeah,
or something like that?
Yeah.
And like I never got that at all from playing that game, like, you know, as a kid. And they're like, oh yeah, he's a very classical jester archetype. I'm like, really?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to, you know, like have a person be a jester in a 16-bit game, but yeah,
Right.
he's a clown. He's the that's his entire shtick.
Yeah, I do find it actually interesting. Like you mentioned that all the roles are played by men in traditional kabuki theater, but like this game clearly has like gendered characters, except
Like the shamans and stuff. I forgot about that.
yeah. So certain roles you can only assign to certain genders. Like only male villagers can be sumo wrestlers, and only female villagers can be shamans. Most roles you can assign to both genders, like woodcutters, archers, ascetics, etc. But the funny thing is, both they'll like whether you assign a female or a male villager to a role, they'll look the same.
Yeah.
After the game, that like as the more I get into it, I'm gonna have to avoid the guides and stuff. You know what I mean? Because I can really feel that min max. Like, what is the best class? Kind of, you know.
Oh no! Like they want you to experiment. Like
okay.
You will fail a couple of levels and have to restart them. Like that's part of the process.
Yeah, it's not too bad. The levels themselves are pretty short, right? I mean, I don't know if they end up getting longer, but the first
they get
three
longer,
were like 20, 30 minutes.
You fail. Like if you fail, you just go back to the last checkpoint. So if you've cleared a Torii gate, like say there are multiple Torii gates in that level, you'll just go back to the last Torii gate.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, and like finally on gender and this game, I think this is one of the few games where you play like obligatorily play as a non-binary character.
Yeah.
Yeah, because so is non-binary.
I love it. Oh my God. What a gift, this game.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. I can't think of I think this is the highest budget game where you play as an like obligatorily non-binary character that exists. Like, don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's true for sure.
Fantastic stuff.
Cool. If it is, it's cool.
There's a non-binary character in Battlefield, but I think I've registered my, I don't know, doubt about that. I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah,
because they don't give them any dialogue or anything other than that. They just basically said this character is, and then there's no like advancement or anything with the character at all. There's no campaign or anything. It's just they just came out.
It's just one of the operator.
The operators, yeah.
So I was gonna say hero character.
Yeah, basically.
But we'll talk about hero characters in a little bit.
Oh boy, will.
Wolfman, what have you been playing?
So I could talk about two other like pretty notable Japanese RPGs because I've been playing both of them at the same time, Pokemon Legends Arceus and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I mean, you know, it's if I had a nickel for every time Nintendo released a 2022 sandbox RPG set in a strange fantasy world with two societies fighting each other, would only... But no. I'm gonna go with a game that no one else will play for the Avocado, for the Gamescast. I'm going to talk about 50 Cent Blood on the Sand.
Oh yeah, let's do this.
I really like that game when it came out. It was really fun.
So, I'm just going to go and start by saying that the worst part of 50 Cent Blood on the Sand is the fact that there's a music player where you can play 40 50 Cent and G-Unit songs, except it doesn't actually work. Because I tried like fiddling with it after the game ended, and not only did it stop playing music, but I restarted a playthrough, and it no longer plays music. So I think I may have completely screwed this permanently.
Like corrupted your install of the game.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so last time I was on here, you know, I talked about a series I've been working on. I'm writing about games from 2009, and you know, Blood on the Sand seemed like a perfect option. It's incredibly memorable and well known, and also I actually had a copy of the game, and to be honest, it's really nice when you can just use like writing to justify dumb purchases you made a decade ago. But actually, 50 Cent Blood on the Sand is really fun. Like, I can't call it.
Surprisingly fun.
Yeah, I can't call it great. It is ultimately still a, cover-based third-person shooter. Like, it doesn't inherently solve those problems. It is as problematic as you would expect.
Yeah.
But from a game starring 50 Cent. But it really works for me, and I think the reason why it works is because, well, it's for two reasons. One is that it has a solid foundation. Are any of you familiar with the origin of this game? Like the origin.
It was gonna be, was it like a siphon filter or something type game? And
It
then they
was-
like scrapped it.
It was a game originally intended to be an adaptation of the Covert-One novels, like the ones that were like inspired by Robert Ludlum after the success of The Bourne Identity. For a TV, well, it was meant to kind of come out in conjunction with a TV show that I think was going on for like ABC. That show got canceled like immediately. So then they decided to like shop it around to another property. At one point, they were going to try to sell it to Ubisoft as like a Tom Clancy's game. And then at one point, they were told, well, we have... this is Vivendi before they merged to become Activision Blizzard. We had a... it's
been a while.
Yeah. Right? So they realized that, a few years before they had made a crappy shovelware game about 50 Cent and it sold over 1 million copies. And then they were just like, well, make it a sequel. So basically what you had was a very well-made cover-based shooter that, like, could have been stuck with, like, any other property. Like, it would have been probably just as offensive or even more offensive somehow. Like, probably really nasty or more, like, standard. But it still had that strong foundation, and because it was grafted onto one of the single most shameless men in 21st century American pop culture.
Once in a generation hater.
Yes. The man who once, like, fired a guy from his supergroup by calling him late at night and making him cry on the phone and then leaking that audio.
Told Danny Brown he couldn't join G Unit because his pants were too tight.
What? I think Danny Brown dodged a bullet.
Like a year after this game came out, 50 Cent would like trash 2 of the 3 G Unit sidekicks, who are in this, who are all like, hey 50, you gotta go and like fight. You gotta jump off this ramp. It's very fun. They're like your sidekicks. They're so like excited to be your sidekick.
Your hype man.
Yeah, it's basically like Morgana from Persona 5. like looking cool.
Do they also say 50, you can't fight at night. You'll be too tired to fight the next day.
Oh, I wish.
That's just facts. I don't know what you're
50 this was an era of like in games and also in culture where like our heroes were like very, very much anti-heroes. Like much of the time they were psychotic. A lot of the times they were just very cruel or mean or standoffish. If you tried to explain something, they'd always say, "Speak English," because your science was too flowery. You were like, this was, yeah. And so 50 is basically this, except he's 50 Cent trying to retrieve I was going to call it a magical skull. The diamond-encrusted skull is not magical. I wish to God it was magical.
Like you wish this were Uncharted, essentially.
I mean, it basically is Uncharted. Like,
Wait,
it's like there's nothing about him that's heroic. There's nothing about him that's really like there's no attempt to actually humanize him every time. He's just this like utterly like stoic, like almost robotic.
they sent him after the Crystal Skull, the thing done by Damien Hirst for the gods.
Basically, I find it really fascinating because I really find just this whole thing.
Zeitgeist at that time.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I find it really fascinating that this is basically would be any other, like if it was literally any other property, if it was Sam Fisher going to the Middle East to shoot people, it would just be what you'd assume it was. But by cutting out any veneer of heroism and any veneer of anything other than self-glorification, like violent dominance and the excesses of power and wealth, it feels like the truth. Like this is the true thing that our games were. And
Like, it always achieves a kind of like zen is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Like it transcends how stupid it is to become almost like there's a certain almost like spiritual tranquility you get when you play something this stupid.
Also, I should just be clear. It's really fun. Like you start the game, you're given 4 weapons. One of those weapons is a rocket launcher. You start the game with a rocket launcher.
Oh, this is incredible.
Yeah,
I love this.
Incredible.
You can taunt. There's like an elaborate point system, and if you taunt, you get more points. And if you go to the
It's
shop,
got like bullet storm features.
Yes, it's
Yes.
maybe the first game that had the pop-ups like scores as you're killing stuff.
This is so. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I have to play this game.
and if you go to the shop, you can buy extra taunts.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And you can like chain combat taunts. So like you would kill a guy, taunt a guy, kill a guy, taunt a guy. It's like you're constantly just shit talking as you're killing if you're trying to like maximize your score.
Once in a generation hater.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing it like him.
It's so.
Swiss Beats did the music for this?
Well, yeah, because it's G-Unit shit.
Yeah, it's it's
This was Alicia Keys' husband.
Yeah, I was about to say. There's a connection. There's an Alicia Keys connection here. Oh my gosh.
also, one last thing. Lance Riddick is in this game.
What?
Of course he is.
This is like right a year after The Wire, and it was like a few years before he went into Destiny and really became like iconic as a video game voice actor. He plays a guy named Carter. He has a soul patch. He gets 50 in G-Unit to help him steal an armored truck, and then you blow him up in his helicopter.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And like his whole villain arc, if I remember, it's just like he just doesn't like you. Like there's no like real like big like I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Pure
Like, I don't remember there being like more of it than that. I might be wrong, but I'm not saying it put its story very forward. But like I'm pretty sure his whole thing was he just didn't like you.
I mean, no one. I mean, like, why would he? It's there is a character who loves 50 Cent, and he's like, he owns a strip club, and he is described as the world's biggest 50 Cent fan.
Oh my god.
But outside of that, no one likes him.
This is great. What I really appreciate about Lance Reddick is that he would do the entire gamut from lowbrow nonsense like this to like go acting on like in Shakespeare plays
He showed up
in like theater.
Maybe one of the worst animated series I ever heard of. That Farzard. You ever see that one? I think it was that one.
Barzard.
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. Don't I don't know if you can
No,
look
no.
it up.
No, I have to look it up. We have to see it now.
Oh, it's awful.
And then
But
I'm
like
also
he
thinking
would
about
bring the same seriousness to every role.
Yeah, 100%. Like he's
Like
acting
he's
shit out of his
100%
character in
committed.
Farzard. Like, oh, dude, you don't have to.
I'm thinking about how like he was the big bad in the second season of DuckTales, and he basically just acts as stoic and as scary as he does in like John Wick or The Wire.
Wait, this is a Netflix series? There's a Netflix animated series? How have I not heard of this? How is Netflix so bad at advertising?
If you can
stuff
make it through the first 20 minutes, I'll be shocked. It's that bad.
Okay, I will just read the first sentence of the premise.
Okay.
Farzar takes place on the planet Farzar, where the son of the villainous Tsar Renzo, Prince Feikel, has been placed in charge of the Shat Squad, S-H-A-T squad.
Yeah.
Shat Squad.
You know,
That's the kind of humor we're dealing with here.
The whole time.
Cyborg Scooty.
Conjoined twins, Mal and Val, Skull Crusher. What? Okay, this is.
Yeah, oh yeah.
This-
No, please don't watch Farzard.
this feels like basically the kind of parody where it's basically doing just anything it wants to do and then occasionally making a joke and then saying it's parody. Or to bring us back to Rob Liefeld, what Deadpool originally was.
Well, I think with this one, I think they were looking for. Everybody was looking for the next Rick and Morty, and that's very much what this one felt like. It was like,
Yeah,
you know, that level of whatever. But anyway, but guess what? Lance Reddick's awesome in it. It's like he was in that Resident Evil show, remember? And everybody was like, "Oh, best part about it, Lance Reddick."
Yeah,
and then the whole rest of the show was like, "Oh."
I actually still want to watch that show just because Lance Reddick is Albert Wesker is an insanely cool bitch.
Yeah. And he's just, he's awesome in it. And then everybody else is like, well, the show got canceled. That's a shame, but we all saw it coming. But man,
that's weird that I didn't hear any like discourse about that.
oh, it was out there for a minute, and then everybody watched it, and it was like, okay, yeah, never mind. Like there was like an hour of hype for it. Yeah.
There was kind of the, standard, like, racist shithead thing of you can't cast a black man as Wesker. And outside of that, like...
In this
honestly,
particular instance, I kind of get it, because Albert is basically a Nazi.
Actually, I'm gonna, like, make a pitch for for Black Wesker specifically here, which is that, like... Spencer, like Oswald Spencer, the founder of Umbrella, is like he was a racist eugenicist, and he started his company by forcing an African nation off their land.
Yeah.
And so I kind of think there is possibly an interesting narrative thing of him becoming such a eugenicist that he starts to like want to use, I don't know, like the idea of Wesker as a person who's been a person of a racial minority has been exploited and now is like taking over and becoming this like Ubermensch that like this evil like super villainous Brit could never be.
Just like, Africa is the cradle of mankind.
Well, I also beyond
so
that.
Aren't they with Ada Wong though?
Sorry?
Aren't they
Ada Wong?
Ada Wong does not, to our knowledge, like, have anything really... She's not part of the company. She's just, like, your, like, standard double agent who gets hired by anyone.
No, I mean in terms of, like, kind of her kind of arc. Like, the kind of thing that's going... The thing you're describing about Lance Reddick being Wesker, like, aren't they already kind of telling that story with her?
I guess. I'm not fully sure. Maybe RE6, but that would demand going into stuff into RE6 that I'm not really...
No.
I don't know if I have the energy to do.
Fair. That's entirely fair.
Yeah.
So if... I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for this series right now, and if you read the cast list and the list of roles Lance Reddick plays, it tells a story.
Oh,
So
no.
it says Lance Reddick as Dr. Albert Al Wesker, Jade and Billy's father. Burt Wesker, Jalen Billy's
Yes!
uncle and Al's
Oh my
brother.
God, they're doing that.
Albie Wesker, Al and Bert's deceased brother. And then the final part of the list that makes this a story. Albert Wesker, a rogue Umbrella operative who created several clones of himself.
Yeah, no,
Brilliant list ordering here.
I forgot
No,
they went
this is-
super heavy with the clone stuff. Even like people who are watching the show were like, I don't know what this is about even at this point.
This is out of RE5. Like, Wesker has a lot of clones, or maybe they're not clones and they're just like children who were kidnapped and like raised as clones.
Yeah, basically raised the same.
Wait, if you were kidnapped, wouldn't you know that you're not a clone of like?
It's
a clone though.
it's
the clone. He was the only clone that survived though. Like,
except
Okay,
also
you know what this
that-
reminds me of? Back when I was in grade 1, there was a white kid who had the same birthday as me, and people asked if we were twins.
God, that
Or
shit
clones.
People legitimately thought we were twins. Yeah.
There was a black kid in my class who we both had the same last name, and every day it's like, are y'all related? Aren't you related? Are you gonna get married? Shut the fuck up! Oh my god. Anyway,
Oddly, from what's in the
I'm also now realizing that this is a cast that sounds like it's like 20% just Lance Reddick. Which might actually be like the perfect, like the full stage perfection of human television.
you know what? That's fair. It's what he would have wanted. Wesker, I mean.
So is there anything else you'd like to tell us about 50 Cent Blood on the Sand?
This is a game where it's very fun to blow people up, and very fun to have a bad guy who shouts things like, "This is the end for you, 50 Cent." And
Not even like this is the end for you, Curtis. No, this is the end for you, 50 Cent.
The game makes it very clear you're not like a secret operative name. No, you are 50 Cent the rapper. It's very clear in the game.
This is incredible.
No like lampshading it. There's no like actually 50 Cent's been 50 years behind, enemy lines doing secret ops. No, it's just like, nah, you're 50 Cent.
Incredible. I love that.
And with that, I'm going to recede my thing. There's only so much of this that won't just be me laughing about 50 Cent, so please, someone else.
Yeah, so Quinley, what have you been playing?
So I've been playing a couple things. I've been playing, God help me, I went back to Skyrim for a few weeks. Did some mod to play modded Skyrim. I don't even know why. I got the itch.
Have you locked yours down so that you don't have to worry about the patches or anything anymore?
I didn't do that because I the anniversary edition, but what I did not know was that even if you had Skyrim Special Edition and didn't pay for the DLC pack anniversary edition stuff, there was still a patch that got applied to Skyrim Special Edition to add in all the other content. So you did still get it for free if you had Skyrim Special Edition, but yeah, it fucked up my entire mod list.
It happened to everybody, unfortunately. Yeah.
And I went through trying to fix it, trying to update, because I use Vortex because I'm tired. Okay, I'm tired.
I'm the same.
I don't want to use Mod Organizer. I'm tired. But I was going through it, and I'm like, if I have to go through an update, because I had like 300 and something mods. I'm like, I'm just going to go to the folder. I'm just going to delete all of them. I'm just going to start fresh. And I downloaded one of those. Vortex has those collections now.
Yeah.
So I just downloaded one of those just to get kind of the basics in there, like the engine fixes and all that.
UI and stuff like that.
That's got UI and all of that stuff. I abandoned Caliente Beautiful Body Enhancer. I forgot the face of my mother. I'm using BHUNP because it's more up to date, and all the body armor requires that body. All the body. You want to look like a thotty in Skyrim, you gotta have the BHUNP bod. So I got that. Also, High Polyhead is not on Vortex anymore. It's not available. You can't download it there. You have to go to some random third-party site that requires an account. And even when you make the account, the link to the actual mod doesn't work. So I had to scour Google for like 20 minutes trying to find
Yes.
the link, and somebody has it rehosted on some random Google Drive, and I was able to find that.
Sometimes with those you can get lucky if like somebody else has it as a dependency, like they'll have it linked in their dependency. I've had that happen a few times.
But aside from that, I didn't do anything special. I was mostly just vanilla. I didn't add any special classes. I just had the engine fixes, did the visuals, all that stuff, and fussed with all the jiggle physics and everything. But those work. But
it's weird to play an unmodded Skyrim, even like or less modded. It depends on what you're used to.
You get like the first thing you remember is, fuck, this intro was long.
Yeah.
Then you're just sitting there, and because it's so long, you're sitting in the cart looking at these NPCs, and you're like, damn, these NPCs are ugly.
Yeah,
hang on.
This looks right. Yeah. Why does that guy's beard looks like it was like taped to his face? You know what I mean? And then like, I'm gonna get a beard mod, and then his teeth are so yellow. Now I gotta get a tooth mod. You know, like I know exactly what you mean.
But it's only the NPCs. Like everything else, like the actual environments themselves actually hold up pretty well. Like the only environment thing that I did for Skyrim was like the additional flora mod, like just to have more grass and more flowers and more trees. But other than that, I left I didn't do any E and B stuff. I left it the environment alone. We're still
Skyrim. Sorry. Yes, no. Skyrim's a beautiful looking game. The problem is it's just with the graphics and also with the story is all the little people in it.
So that's the thing. Something that I was, because before when the topic was going to be like what game should you play to understand the medium, I was playing Skyrim and I was trying to find like an angle for Skyrim, and the angle I ended up coming with is like, if you want to understand the modern state of the medium in terms of like all of these games that now have become content platforms on top of it, you need to play a modded game. You have to play a modded version of Skyrim. But even still, Skyrim, weirdly enough, like there are aspects of it but that feel dated, but it has a charm about it that for whatever reason is just irresistible to me. It like, I'm walking through Whiterun, I have the Open Cities mod, so I just open the gate, and then it's like, have you been to the Cloud District? Yeah, good to see you too, fucko. And then just keep walking, go to Arcadia. Hey, Arcadia, what's up? Give me some dragonflies. And then you go to everything's for sale. If I had a sister, shut the fuck up, give me some coal. and some bars and stuff so I can make this armor, and then I leave, I do the basic quests, I have my house, I get Lydia. It feels like coming home in a way. It's just so cozy and nice, and also the game
I completely get that exact same feel.
The game doesn't care about you, and that's great. Like, even when you become Dragonborn, like at first they're all like, oh wow, the Dragonborn, and then like 10 minutes later you shout in the village and they're like, would you please stop all that shouting?
It's
thinking of it as like that comfort food. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Skyrim does a lot to like kind of undercut its own magic. Like suddenly you have all this power and it suddenly just feels pedestrian, or like you go back to Whiterun and suddenly the vampires just kill a couple NPCs and you're like, do I want to restart the save so that they don't die, or do I just
open the console? But that could fuck up my game if I do that. The thing about the feeling like a god and it feeling pedestrian, one thing I will say is that aspect of it is in fact supported by lore, because every game you start as a prisoner and then you become a god in some way. With Oblivion you become Sheogorath, and Morrowind I forget what the specific name of the thing it is you become, but you basically every game you basically transcend. So that part doesn't bother me as much.
Oh yeah, it's
at least thematically consistent.
Yeah, it's silly, but it's, it's more that I find I find it more silly than fully bad. And like, I will always kind of remember like skulking through Berenzia, or wait, was it
Berenzia.
but there it is. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's been a long time.
Yeah, no, I downloaded the mod just so that I could put those in a box.
Oh, the stones. Yeah.
Riots. Like, I'm gonna get the mod so that I know where they are, and then I'm gonna put them in this box, and then I'm gonna forget about them completely.
Yeah,
The game gives you so many holders, and then not that ones for that, and that's like one of the few like go all the way around the world and collect it.
Oh, sorry, I'm not thinking.
Like a satchel or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god.
I'm actually realizing I'm not thinking about the biographies of Berenzia. I'm thinking about the really large, like gigantic underground section.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
like
the Dwemer ruins.
Yeah, the
Dwemer ruins.
Yeah, the Dwemer ruins. It's like
That's
it's kind of
I stopped playing because I got to the point in the plot where you're gonna start having to go to a lot of those. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I hate these.
it's a lot, and it has a lot of Skyrim's problems. But I also kind of always remember, like, I believe it was like just endlessly using the same low level spells to increase all my to level up all my skills, and sneaking around the way too high level enemies.
And all that Dwemer crap sells for so much. You want to you pick up like every damn cog. Is like
and it's so heavy though.
Yeah. Well, I played a mod too that added like clockwork summons, and you need like all those little like bowls and cogs and stuff. So I was like, I was always picking them up.
Ooh, that's really cool.
So like you could like summon like the little spiders or little thing on the rotating ball. You know what I mean? If you had the right. Yeah, that was a pretty cool mod.
One of the mods, the outfit mods that I had, you could craft armor so that you had the what are those, the sentinels, so that you had like one robot arm from the Dwemers, or if you just want limbs. So like I was running around on those little pinpoint
ball thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. But yeah, I think it is really interesting to look at not just, Skyrim, because I mean, people have been modding Bethesda games, forever, but it is interesting to look at Skyrim and the modding scene and how it has been ongoing for, over 10 years at this point, 13 years. I think people are still playing this game, still releasing mods for it. And then during that time, to see all of these other games, including Bethesda, like getting in on having, their game also now be like a host for content. All of their, the anniversary editions they've added just to make it easier for people to download, mods and not have to use Mod Organizer and learn Python and get a JSON container and all this shit. But like, it is really interesting to see like that and how Bethesda approached it. Like, because just they're like, we know what side our bread is buttered on, so we're not going to fuck with this too much. We're going to work with them though. We're going to, and to their credit, with the Starfield or with the Skyrim Anniversary Edition, I think like the mods, like if you pay for them, like the modder does get paid. I don't know how much of a percentage, but like they're making sure their modders get paid. That's great. None of that is happening in Roblox. Yeah, the kids aren't getting paid. Nobody's getting paid. For them.
Oh yeah. Oh,
like, and it's just it's surreal. And I know Roblox technically came out in like 2006 or like and then it came out on mobile phones in like 2012, 2014 or something. But like it's just so surreal to see just the dissonance between what Skyrim does and the community it fosters and the kind of like just developed content that it did. Like at Bethesda at Gamescom, like after they had the trailer for Shattered Space, they had a trailer for a quest mod in Skyrim still. Yeah. Like you did a cinematic trailer for that mod. And that's so wonderful.
I imagine part of it is that Elder Scrolls is just, it's designed by people who make big bespoke single player games and have had like that relationship with their audience, and Roblox is... Well, to be honest, I actually don't know anything about the making of Roblox. I think its design is...
It's a sandbox, basically, at this point.
Yeah.
But, I think what you can see in, like, a similar space for a game that's got kind of the same longevity would be Fortnite, which does something similar, right? Like, they pay their modders that create a lot of those custom things. And on down seasons, I mean, it is the custom maps that carry Fortnite, So I think that more and more, a lot of people originally were like, oh, man, new engine. And Bethesda's like, look, our engine does a lot of unique stuff, and we don't want our modders to have to go learn a whole engine. So we're going to make this baby
one and add a little tweaks, and it's still going to be roughly the same, but also still bad. But you're going to play it. But where are you going to go somewhere else? No.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody else doing sprawling, multi-100-hour modded up, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, I mean,
it's also like the simulationist aspects of those games, like being able to place an object on a map and then just say a pencil somewhere on a desk and then leave and then come back 20 hours later and that pencil's still there. Basically no other engine can do that in
there's always like a cleanup cell,
games
right?
that expensive. Yeah.
And I mean just looking Merve will remember this. I sent you a screenshot of a mod that I happened to see on Tumblr, which
you should describe this for the audience.
Okay, there is this mod who this is all he does, by the way. On Vortex, the mod was like dragon shout lick woman's armpit, and that's all it does. That's all it does. It has no other mod requirements. Everything that is needed to run the mod is already in the game, and all it is a spell, and you just do the shout, and then you just kind of latch onto the nearest woman's armpit. That's it. That's all it is. And, he has so many other ones. He has, one where they sit on your face. He has one where they just ignore you. He has one where, you can rub their feet or something like that. He has,
every fetish?
Yeah. Yes, literally almost every single one. At least the ones that Vortex will allow. And he makes NPCs and stuff. And, the armpit one, that came out this year. That came out in May.
In the screenshot you sent me, so far it has 38 endorsements, 1,042 downloads, and 9,214 views. That was as of August 16th. So who knows how many endorsements it has now.
It's... Wow. I'm going to be Todd Howard looking at the back of the mountain that you can go to. Wow.
I know. Maybe the modder is Todd Howard. You don't know.
Yo, there's an NPC in Starfield. One of the standard NPC models looks exactly like Todd Howard.
Oh, yeah. And I forget what his name is, but in Skyrim, the Todd Howard NPC is Maik the Liar. He's a Khajiit that you'll just randomly find.
Wait, that's...
Yeah.
That's voiced by Todd Howard?
That's his OC that's in the game. I think he was in Oblivion and Morrowind too. It's just this Khajiit who's named Maik the Liar, and I think you ask him for directions, and whatever directions he gives you, he is lying.
Yeah, and he always tells you
the first time you play, he's like, "Oh yeah."
It's so realistic.
As someone went in and looked at his his AI, right? And all he does is roam city to city and steal calipers. There's calipers in the game, and he just roams city to city and steals calipers.
This is
the fucking Draugr fucking things are just stealing all the calipers.
Yeah, that's why you find them in really random places, because there's they'll put a caliper in the bottom of a well, and you'll go down there and be like, hey, why is Maik down here? And yeah, that was basically what his programming was.
Those are the scripts.
My brain is melting. I feel like I must have passed him like at least 30 times in the dozens and dozens of hours I've played Skyrim.
Mhm.
I will say about Starfield, the first time I saw an NPC who looked like Todd Howard, he was standing right outside the plastic surgery clinic, so I don't know what they were trying to imply. Uh, have you been playing anything else, or just on Skyrim?
The other one I played was a game that is in early access called Fields of Mistria. I talked about it a little bit on the Avocado.
Oh, this is the horny Stardew.
Uh,
Well, not exactly horny.
no,
Uh,
no. I have also been playing the horny Stardew. It's called Cloud Meadow. It's called Cloud Meadow. Google it on your own time. Make sure it works.
okay, I've got an incognito window open.
Yeah.
Cloud Meadow, you say?
I've got an incognito window open and I'm not searching that, so thank you.
Go on and look at it.
Oh, I can't look at it. Okay, I have to look at it through the Steam client, not through the Steam website.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but
Cloud
anyway.
Meadow. Okay, keep talking. I'll look this up.
Sure.
Anyway, Fields of Mistria. It's a Stardew. It looks like a Stardew Valley clone at first glance, but it actually, after playing it, it's more like Rune Factory in vibe and spirit. It has. I really like the character designs. They're all kind of made to look like almost like the '90s Fantasy Star NPCs. They all kind of have like the girls that have long hair all kind of have like puffy hair. There's one villager, Juniper, who just straight up looks like a Sailor Moon villain. Like she would just be the villain they would be dealing with for like 25 episodes. She's great. She even has the Japanese noblewoman's laugh thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she's the only character that has that. She's the only one who does it, and it's great.
Incredible.
Yeah. But basically the basic premise is the town was hit by an earthquake, and they put out basically a classifieds ad like, "Hey, who wants a free farm, free land, and free housing?" And you're like, "Me." And so you go there, and from there the gameplay loop is about what you'd expect. You farm, you fish, you cook, you mine, you explore, do favors for locals, build up the city. Keyboard and mouse controls could use some polish. They just make some weird design choices with the keyboard and mouse. Like, how in like Stardew, if you hold down the button and you've got like, say, the watering can or whatever, or like you're planting seeds and you can just kind of walk and they'll just plant the seeds if you've got the button.
You have to press for every spot.
Yeah, this one, the holding the button down like a charge or whatever, it has its own key binding, which is very strange. Like, if you want a charge thing, you have to hold T, which is like, why can't I just hold?
Key,
yeah, it's that aspect feels weird, but other than that, it mostly plays fine. There's not a whole lot on the gameplay front. It's still in early access. One of the game's shortcomings, I think, is it doesn't really do anything too different from any other games. Like, the one gimmick it does have that Stardew didn't get until very recently, like the most recent big patch, was spells. But even then, Sunhaven had that at launch, and Sunhaven had been in early access for like 2 or 3 years. And the spells in Sunhaven system is pretty robust. It's pretty good.
Isn't it interesting how quickly we went from calling like a game like a Harvest Moon game to a Stardew game, though? I mean, like, pretty much everybody does it, but like, we've kind of forgotten about Harvest Moon being the OG of that.
This one is more like Rune Factory too, like as far as the vibe and like the approach to dialogue and how the characters are written are very much in line with the marvelous English localization for the Rune Factory games. So it's like witty and kind of snarky and cute, but it's also still like the romance is especially that they're still very sweet. But the one main strength is the cast of characters. All their dialogue is written really well, and it's done in such a way that you actually get the sense that these people actually talk to each other. Like in Stardew Valley, like you would see people hanging around and talking about each other, but never
That's a good
really
point.
talking to each other. So there was this kind of weird, like where they're all just kind of standing there, and it's kind of one of the things that as soon as you notice it, it kind of takes you out of it. And also, they kind of say roughly the same things every day, even though they have their specific schedules. I think in Fields of Mistria, I'm in this fall season right now. They have a set schedule, but I have never talked to an NPC and had them say the same thing twice.
Hmm.
Like they have something different that they say every single day. And one of the biggest, I think, things that actually makes it feel like a community is like every Friday, everybody in the village, like in Stardew, they go to the tavern. But every season, they everyone in the tavern is hanging out with a different group of people, and they're all
Oh.
doing like, different activities. So like in spring, there are little like each seasonal group has little running subplots. So like in spring, one table is running a D&D group. The other group is playing poker, or you can join the folks at the bar and listen to some low stakes small town gossip and things like that. And then in summer, uh, the the configurations of the groups change. Different people hang out with other people, but they're still kind of doing the same activities. Like somebody else has now taken up the mantle of the DM, and now they're running their own game. The people that were playing, where where they were playing poker, now they're doing art lessons, so they're all drawing. And every single week, their little subplots progress a little bit more until they're finalized in the last month. And it's just a really good way of like letting you actually get to know these characters and these people and just kind of what the overall vibe of the town is like. And that's something that is very much missing from Stardew. So that is one thing that Fields of Mistria does really, really well.
I really love that. That sounds excellent.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear it's coming along nicely. Do you know how much longer it's going to stay in early access?
Last I checked, the roadmap was for I want to say 2025 ish.
Oh, that's pretty soon.
Oh yeah,
So,
here we go. First major update comes in the fourth quarter of 2024, and then it just says future updates in no particular order. It doesn't specifically say when it will be out, though. But the things that are being added, at least based on the roadmap, it seems to be more they're not adding any new like mechanics. They're just adding upgrades and like cosmetics and animals and content. So the basic formula is already established, so I don't expect that it would take that long. Just kind of
yeah, it's
what
probably like assets and balancing and stuff.
yeah, exactly. Like some
Okay,
balancing stuff.
cool.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe sometime next year, maybe even this time next year, who knows? But yeah, it's pretty good. I like it.
Awesome. Before we move on to what I've been playing, I'm just going to read one sentence from the description of Cloud Meadow. And this sentence is in
Oh, no.
bold letters on the Steam store page. It says, "You must establish a farm, breed your friends, and fight against evildoers."
Oh, I
Wow.
have to breed my friends, you say.
The funniest thing about that
You
is
must.
you must. You must. You are compelled. Yeah, no, it's
Hey,
it's
buds.
exactly what it sounds like. Everyone wants to bang the little farmer.
It really
Okay.
takes player sexuality to wildly economic ends.
Honestly, though, since you've insisted on bringing this up, Merv, it is probably like in terms of like the the way that sex is depicted, it's probably one of the most sex positive and queer sex friendly games I've ever seen. Like it is very much that kind of game, but there is like it's it's sex, it's whatever, it's ultimately a porn game, but there is a sense of like just fun and joy that I get playing this game that I haven't in other ones that are like clearly just for, the stated purpose. Like all the NPCs
Yeah.
are funny and they're cute and they have like different dialogues and there's a bunch of different quests and stuff. It's surprisingly robust given its premise.
I will say, like, you can tell it's queer from the screenshots that they've chosen
Oh yeah.
for to display on the Steam store page. I will say one curious screenshot that has two naked characters. In the bottom right has a frames per second counter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know what that's for, but it says 12 FPS.
Faster. It's exactly what you think it's for. Don't play coy. All right.
Yeah.
I
Know
legitimately
what that's for.
like faps per second.
No, it's frames per second.
Yeah, it's the speed.
Yeah, it's the speed to make the animation go faster.
Oh, that particular animation. I thought it was like, are you speeding up? Is it like, I thought it was like do you want like half frame animation versus like smooth animation?
Oh.
Like, do you want it trigger style or do you want it A1 picture style?
Oh. No, it's literally just to make the animation move faster.
Okay.
No, this
So
is
it is
not
kind of
something
faps
that-
per second in a way.
this
Okay,
is
got
not
it.
something that would get an upgrade from the PS5 Pro, which we
Oh,
will be
no.
talking about later.
God.
So just to briefly mention what I've been playing, which does not involve harnesses around giant gray monster penises. I've been playing a game called Famicom Detective Club, The Girl Who Stands Behind. So this is the second game in the Famicom Detective Club series that Nintendo remade. Was it last year, earlier this year?
I believe I feel like I should know. Oh, sorry.
I feel like I should have looked this up before starting to talk about it while we were discussing Fields of Mystery. I should have just looked up when these came out. Yeah, I think they released 2021.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That was a long time ago.
I was gonna guess either that or 2019. It was an odd. I knew it was an odd year.
Anything in that COVID era is like it could have come out any of those like 2.5
You know.
years.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so that's so these were old school adventure games for the NES. Actually, not even the NES. Sorry, the Family Computer Disk System,
Yeah,
which is a thing we didn't get out here. And then later re-released for the Super Famicom, but only in Japan. And what these games are they're old school adventure games that are effectively just visual novels. They're framed as mystery games like your Danganronpas or your Ace Attorneys, but you don't actually solve mysteries. They kind of play themselves in the sense that you don't solve puzzles. Instead, you're just picking options from menus, and picking the right ones advances the plot. But there's no like failure state if you pick the wrong option. You can't get in an unwinnable state. The worst you can do is just like struggle for a while figuring out what option the game wants you to select next. Which does create a lot of problems. The first Famicom Detective Club game, The Missing Heir, is really, really bad for this because sometimes it's extremely unclear what you're supposed to do to advance the game, and it's not at all immediate or intuitive. It's not like picking one option. It's exhausting 5 options and then picking a specific option twice or thrice, and that advances the game. Things like that. A lot less of that in The Girl Who Stands Behind, which is nice. But unfortunately, thus far, story's a lot less interesting. It's about the murder of a schoolgirl and its links to an urban legend. And then as you investigate this urban legend, you discover maybe there's some truth behind it. I find this a lot less interesting than the family drama of the worst people on the planet from the previous game in the series, The Missing Heir. Basically, a bunch of people died, but it's okay because they all sucked. But you still need to solve why they died. But like I found that their awfulness kind of compelling, in like a almost a Bluthian sort of way. Except for imagine the Bluths weren't funny; they were just despicable. That's kind of what's going on.
So it's the Bluths in season 4.
Oh yeah, basically. With nothing as like as empty and stupid as Fake Block, but you know they have their moments. Thus far, I'd say these are really shockingly like sumptuously made for what they are, like as revivals of games that were Japan only and not like extraordinarily popular ever, and bringing them to an international audience. They're like the character models are super detailed. It's all fully voiced. Like it a lot went into these things, and it's shocking, like for what they are, how much effort went in. They even like the third game of the series, which was just released about a month ago now, as of recording, that just came out. Like they made that. That's in a case that you can buy. I own the case. It's sitting on my entertainment center shelf right now.
Emio, the smiling man.
Yeah. They even did like semi-viral marketing campaign for it where first they teased it, but they didn't say what it was. It was just, you knew it was from Nintendo and it was M-rated. And everyone was like, M-rated Nintendo published game? How naughty.
Why? Nintendo doing creepypasta with a creepy guy with a smiling bag face, except then if you look carefully, there's actually 2 bags.
Oh, they double bagged it.
Yeah, no, there's a bag.
I heard that actually increases the risk.
Well, now I got it. Oh, hang on.
What was the game Nintendo had? It was supposed to have been like early Wii, where they were like, it was like a black and white chainsaw game. That was their other like...
Oh, that is not Nintendo. That was Platinum Games' Mad World.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was on the Wii, and everybody was like, "What? What is this doing here?"
Yeah, this is similar in the sense, like, not all the same kind of game, but similar in the sense of, like, why did they release this? Like, I'm not complaining. I am very, very happy that we're in Nintendo's weird era, because, like, it's common knowledge at this point that the Switch 2 is supposed to be out by now and got delayed. So, it's nice that they had enough in the pipeline to just give us the weird era, and put out stuff like this.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
What I was just going to say was, I think the reason, basically, is that... So, the Famicom Detective Club, I guess you can now call it a trilogy, was kind of like very much like a labor of love for Yoshio Sakamoto, who is mostly known as kind of the producer of the Metroid series. I think this is really just like... the remakes, the sequel are things he wants to do, and like they're not really intended to get a lot of audience, like to get like wide releases or big audiences, but just allow, in the case of the remakes, these what were cult classics. Like I know Sakurai wanted the mascot of the series to be a playable character in Smash Brothers Melee.
Oh wow.
But you know, these are not gigantic big releases. They're very small. I'm sure Emio will make back its money if it hasn't already. Yeah, these are small, they're fun, and they just happen to be really useful to plop in when things are otherwise perhaps a little tight.
Yeah.
It's my bedtime game. It's like my bedtime game.
I'm really excited to start playing these games. I'm committed.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Like after I'm done, I'm like I'd say 2/3 the way through the Girl Who Stands Behind. Once I finish it, straight into Emio, which I've heard it's not really going to be one of the favorite critical darlings of the year, but I've heard that it's a fascinating game that goes to some really bold places, especially for a Nintendo game, and that the ending is something that people will talk about for a long time.
Man, I want visual novels more. That actually sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I wish, as someone who does play visual novels, I wouldn't say very often, but, enough, I am a little disappointed in the method of interaction. I think these games wouldn't lose anything for leading you by the nose a little bit more and just making it clear what you need to do to progress and then giving you a few moments of mystery solving. It doesn't need to be like full-on Ace Attorney or Danganronpa or Master Detective Archives or what have you. Like you don't need to make this like a full-on puzzle game, but either lead me through or make me or give me real friction, not what this is where I'm trying to just guess what the designer wanted me to do.
It makes me think about how one of the things I really liked in the Paper Mario remake from this May is that the Paper Mario series has like a long-standing like history of giving you sidekicks who give you hints, and this
that.
Yeah, they're great. And this retains that. Goombella still has the same dialogue and gives you the same hints, but in case someone has, say, gone from one end of the map to the other and has no idea where to get back, there's also a secret second hint system that's just much more direct, but also tries to be in character as your partners.
Oh yeah, it does do that, doesn't it? I was playing that I think in like June or July. Huh.
It's a fun thing, and I don't know how easily it could be incorporated because I don't know if the protagonists of these games like are going with a partner or whether they're just doing it solo. But yeah, I think there are ways to give people more and less blunt and more blunt hints.
You're mostly solo, so the protagonist, I found it fun. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. I found it really funny that they wanted the protagonist to be a Smash character because the protagonist doesn't have a name. You name the protagonist.
I should be clear. It's not the protagonist. It's Ayumi, the like sidekick character.
Oh, okay, the sidekick girl, Ayumi Tachibana. Yeah. So you're sometimes accompanied by her, but usually not. I named the protagonist Spanky Spatula because that is my default name in every Japanese game where I'm allowed to name my character. They become Spanky Spatula, or if they're a female character, Spankina Spatula. I know, very, very normal Japanese name.
As always, you're a titan of maturity, Merve.
Yeah, I'm a real adult. I promise. I went to grad school. Why am I like this?
Why like whenever I talk about like a horny game, he always takes the bait.
It's not bait if you want to talk about it.
I mean, I was willing to move on, but you were like, no, please continue. Say more about that.
You can't just dangle a steak in front of a dingo and expect they're not gonna like grab it out of your hand and then grab your hand too.
Given the subject matter of the game. Fantastic. Well done.
Anyway,
Horn, 50 Cent, and you. There's your title.
Perfect.
There you go.
I love it.
Yeah, I do find it funny if they wanted back behind Smash. But like in terms of having a sidekick, you very rarely do have a sidekick. What does play the role of your sidekick in this game is that one of the options on your list is usually think, and think effectively gives you a hint about what to do next.
Oh, that's cool.
But sometimes when you click on think, you just get an ellipsis and you get no hint,
I hate
which is really annoying.
Yeah.
It's like head empty. Don't know what to do next. Just press random options and see what happens.
You told me, directly to just get to a walkthrough when I went to play these games. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I would say definitely for the missing air. For the girl who stands behind you need a lot less because it's the dialogue very strongly hints what you're supposed to do next, generally. And there's a lot less of like, go through every option on the list, and then that's as if time has passed and now someone shows up and the plot advances. There's a lot less than that. It's very much more clear about what you're supposed to do and whom you can talk to at any given point in time. I don't have a segue. Let's just rapid fire a few news items. The first one that I want to mention is that broke earlier this week. Microsoft Gaming is laying off 650 more employees.
Yeah.
Said to be mostly, and we'll get to this in a second, quote unquote, corporate and supporting functions. Phil Spencer, who wrote the memo announcing these layoffs, says that no hardware or software will be canceled as a result of this. So this is, Microsoft Gaming has experienced a lot of layoffs this year. This was another round. There are rumors that something might happen, but nothing really leaked beforehand.
I just find the no, don't worry, nothing has been canceled statement to just really make my skin crawl.
I think I think they have to calm people down that they're not having a lot of games right now. So, but it kind of just feels like this weird thing of it. Like feels like a company whose entire games division is hemorrhaging. And
it shows where their priority actually is. Like, don't worry, the games are still coming. Like,
exactly, yeah.
I think everybody right now is in a spot. I think that Microsoft is probably doing it more out in the open. It seems like, but I mean, Sony's definitely doing it with Bungie. So.
Well, Bungie's doing it with Bungie.
No, Bungie's doing it with Bungie. Sony
only. Yeah, Sony has some other issues, which we'll get to in a second. What I find, obviously I don't want to take away from the criticism of Phil Spencer, and I think his leadership really should be called into question at this point. I do think it's puzzling that anytime something like this happens, like when Sony experiences layoffs, nobody goes and says, hey, is Kenichiro Yoshida, the CEO of Sony, going to talk about this?
But Phil puts himself into this because his persona and the fact that he deliberately interacts with the hardest of his hardcore fan base, maybe I think he sets himself up for this, if nothing.
Sure, but I'm talking about the CEO of the parent company.
Oh yeah.
So for Sony Interactive Entertainment, that would be Hiroki Totoki and Herman Hulst would be the people to go get mad at. And Kenichiro Yoshida, the CEO of the whole umbrella corporation, never has to answer for that. And similarly for Microsoft, Satya Nadella, no one ever, this is 650 people. And no one's asking, yo, Satya, what's up, dude? And these companies have gotten to the point that they are so large that people don't even think it's reasonable to ask the CEO, hey, you just lost 650 employees. What the hell?
Yeah.
Maybe these companies are too big.
I mean, this is something I had actually talked about off with friend of the show Lovely Bones about the purchase of how the issue with Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard King wasn't that it made Microsoft far too large. It's that Activision Blizzard King was already grossly far too large.
They're a bloated company that didn't know how to manage itself. I mean, they also went through substantial cuts in years before they got purchased. In fact, in years where they were making record profits, which was kind of despicable. At this point, I said we'd get back to corporate and supporting functions, and here's where I think they're being a little weaselly. Supporting functions isn't just HR and payroll and accounts receivable. They also, in supporting, are including people in marketing, in testing, customer support, a lot of stuff that isn't, say, directly building the game, but is still very much part of the game dev cycle.
It's essential to these games succeeding and getting into our hands.
these, and like when people frame this as the inevitable result of consolidation, what they're saying is that these are redundant positions, and redundant positions always get eliminated when you have mergers. But I think this has gone beyond redundancy, and they're using the language of redundancy to mask that these are not actual redundancies. These are genuine, like, I don't want to say genuine is the wrong word, but these are like core roles in the like periphery of the development process. I know that's oxymoronic, core in the periphery, but you know what I mean. These are important roles in the development process that are being cut. And I think framing this as the inevitable result of the acquisition is actually just playing into Microsoft's hands, and as they're trying to pull a fast one on us while they lay off the people who market and test the games and provide customer support for the games that we love. I don't think that we should play into their hands. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about this.
I remember like what's that buzzword? It's like they're getting rid of it because, well, it's not a revenue generating center. It's like, look, neither is the air conditioning, but you still pay for that shit.
Everyone wants the high impact or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the one either.
Yeah, but
like
they want the quick and easy way to make the amount of money, and they're getting rid of all of the things that, like, QA, that's just making sure the game works as intended. Like, why are you getting rid of that shit?
I think
because they can contract it out for cheaper.
That's what I was gonna say. Because I work in insurance, and the insurance industry does this every so often as well, where it's like, okay, we're gonna fire all the people who don't directly make money or write policies, right? And then what happens is they go, okay, we're just gonna outsource all that stuff. Then they outsource all of it, and they go, holy shit, outsourcing this stuff is really expensive. Let's go hire a bunch of people. And then you kind of get this like constant churn of people interviewing for their own job over and over and over again. And it sounds bad, but it almost becomes a cycle, and it's kind of understood in the insurance industry. This is what you do every couple of years, is you have to interview for your own damn job for some reason. But not that it's a good thing, but that's exactly what I think. They're probably looking and saying, oh, we'll just outsource all this QA. It can't be that bad. And then, holy crap, outsourcing QA is really expensive. Let's stop doing this. It's going to be the next thing that they think of. But yeah, it sucks.
It'll be like whoever succeeds, Phil Spencer, makes that decision.
Right.
And then that person is going to end up firing everyone they hire. Like, it just seems like such a wasteful process.
Yeah.
And like, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the other part that skeeved me out was him referring to this is a process that they needed to take for, quote, sustainability, which feels like it's appropriating the language of the criticism people like us have been giving Microsoft as a defense of Microsoft.
Yeah, like the whole thing is that your current model is not sustainable, and it's not sustainable now. It wasn't sustainable when people first started bringing it up.
I think we really do need to be careful about this. And again, I'm not trying to sound like I'm defending it. But a lot of the people making those critiques of the business model have not run the numbers. They're just like, they appear intelligent in retrospect because they're saying, oh, it's obvious, but they're basing that on nothing. They're basing that on like a hunch about what they thought was sustainable, what they thought wasn't. And the people who actually ran the numbers probably knew it wasn't going to work out. But those people don't work for like a YouTube channel making commentary. Those people work for Microsoft, and we're not revealing that these things are never going to work out.
Yeah, that could be true. I mean, it's hard. It's absolutely hard to know when you're talking about like the scale that they're talking about, what is and what isn't. Because do you lay off 600 people now or 1,200 people later? Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like we're ever going to like know the real numbers from them. But
I think, and because of that, though, I think that because we can't know this, that we can only look at it from the outside, and from the outside, 650 people just lost their job. It's
Yeah, like, I think we can criticize the outcome. I was more like referring to the whole Game Pass business model. People didn't know that wouldn't work. They were making a lot of assumptions, and the people who made certain assumptions turned out to be right, and now they're pretending they had special knowledge, which they didn't. And I just think we can, like, I think we can bring a little bit more sober thought to that kind of analysis. We don't have to pretend we have access to market data or numbers that we don't.
I didn't mean like Game Pass specifically. I meant just actual like I guess I probably should have said like expansion, like them Microsoft just going and picking up all of these companies out of nowhere, buying them for God, how much did they buy?
$69 billion for Activision.
ZeniMax, Jesus.
That's like $4 billion for ZeniMax, I think.
I thought it was
12 billion. I actually don't know how much it was for ZeniMax.
It was a stupid amount of money. And then like just in the past like year and a half, they've dropped at least half of all the studios they went out of their way to pay so much money to acquire. So it's like
it makes you think: are they buying the studios or the IP, or are they buying? You know what I mean? Things like that.
I think Embracer was buying stuff just for the IP. I think I'm going to give like some of the people at Microsoft, including Spencer, a bit more of a break here. I think they were genuinely had the idea of having this becoming this like publishing machine that was just had
a lot of those companies that were up for sale. If they didn't buy them, someone else would have. Somebody would have bought a lot of those companies, like Arcane or
Bethesda was like leaking money. Mm-hmm. So was Activision. Like these were already very poorly run companies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. I mean, I think that this is kind of like a across the board type thing going on. A lot of industries, I think, right now are going to be in that little dip right now of like, hey, we hired a bunch of people and COVID's over and the line only goes up, so we got to get rid of some people, but.
And then they raised interest rates and.
Yep. Yeah.
So supposedly those are going to get lowered next month. So
if that starts to happen, I think you'll maybe start to see kind of that little contraction again. But for right now, it just seems like that's kind of the thing going on.
Speaking of other major labor changes in the industry, very recently, also this week, there was a mass resignation at Annapurna Interactive. All 25 staff members at the publisher resigned. This was following negotiation with the parent company, Annapurna, owned by billionaire Megan Ellison, or I don't know if she's a billionaire herself. She's the daughter of the billionaire Larry Ellison.
Yeah.
She owns Annapurna, which has split into several arms, one of which is in theater, one of which is in film, and one of which is in gaming. And the gaming arm wanted to spin itself off as an independent company. Negotiations fell through, so the entire team resigned. Remaining executives, again, similar to Microsoft, remaining executives insist that nothing is canceled. All the games are coming out.
I do want to mention that this remaining executive is a guy who co-founded Annapurna and then went to another company.
Epic Games, yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
he just got brought back a month ago. Mm-hmm.
And if there's anyone I trust for financial solvency, it's Epic.
Yeah.
No, this is horrible. Like, we know that Annapurna had been having like financial issues, and it's not as though they, they're like the perfect like image. We also know that there have been a lot of issues of what's the word I'm looking, abuse and impropriety at many of their companies and many of their partners.
Yeah, it was their partners, not like the publisher themselves. Yeah. It was studios that they'd partnered with for publication of games. The financial insolvency issues, if I remember correctly, were at Annapurna's film division, which I believe filed for some form of bankruptcy protection. But the games division had been running in the black, is my understanding.
It's like this is just me getting personal here for a bit, as opposed to when I'm impersonal for the rest of this podcast. Sorry.
Just like One Off the Robot.
Yeah. I remember when like Edith Finch came out, and I played it and I loved it, and it was this incredibly powerful game for me, and I was so excited. And when I discovered that there was this very like art house label that was getting into games, I was so excited, even more so. And they had really cool game after really cool game, and then they also had like some misses. Certainly, I think 12 minutes was really the part where the glasses fell off. That's the like Clockwork game that's very incesty.
Yeah.
I don't think very incest. The funny thing is, very incesty is kind of underselling how incesty it is.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But at the same time, but Annapurna was very helpful as what I felt was a helpful space in a medium that has been growing like extraordinarily big and bloated. And I obviously will need to know more with exactly what happened. It's still beyond the beyond the explanation you gave, Merve. We literally know nothing. We can make assumptions that probably this might have had to do with like Annapurna executives stated like interest in like integrating all of their stuff into some kind of more cohesive brand, which kind of makes my skin crawl. But
I think they were talking a little bit about making some kind of like like in-house style or something.
They were.
There were a couple of games they were developing, or I think they actually released one, didn't they, recently?
I know that they are currently developing a Blade Runner game in-house. I have no idea.
Yeah, that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what they currently have in development. I mean, like, I know that they want a greater synergy across their divisions, but like, does anyone really want an Annapurna cinematic universe?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't even. Yeah, their movies are all over the place, so I don't think it's fair to say that their game should be. You know what I mean? Like
it's
like I don't want Neon White and Maquette living in the same universe.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily that, or if it would be like some kind of the way that Disney like often has the Disney princesses like not interact with each other, but they're all together on like branding.
So.
The branding there makes no sense.
No,
right?
It doesn't.
So, Remedy was actually of Control and Alan Wake fame. They've actually been working with Annapurna on film and TV adaptations for both of those franchises, and the deal was just announced last month. Now, suppose this won't affect the release of like Control 2 or any further Alan Wake games, because Remedy is self-publishing those, so they're fine on that front. But the adaptations,
are under the Annapurna like film and TV branch,
and I believe Control 2 is also possibly tied to that.
I don't think so. Because in the wake of this news, they released a statement saying that no, we're self-publishing our games.
Yeah, so the games are with Remedy, and it's the adaptations that are with the film and TV branch of Annapurna, which is not affected by this recent announcement. I'm calling it Annapurna. Like, I'm Indian. I should be calling it like Annapurna, like a real Indian guy. But anyway, doesn't matter. We don't have to pronounce things correctly here on the Avocado Games Cast. Sorry?
It's a white lady in charge of it. It's fine.
Megan Ellison, yeah. Yeah, she probably says namaste instead of namaste. Yeah, like that. I don't really mind most mispronunciations of like Hindi words because, like, to be frank, my pronunciation's garbage because I grew up in Canada. But the one that is like nails on a chalkboard to me is namaste, right? It's namaste, right? That's what it's always been my entire childhood and my entire life. And when people say namaste, I'm just like, oh dear God, or it's also basmati rice. Like anytime I say, "Oh yeah, I had some basmati rice," like some white guy will correct me, like, "Oh, you mean basmati rice?" I'm like, "No, I mean basmati, motherfucker. Shut the fuck up." Anyway, Annapurna Interactive, very weird situation. Hopefully, the 25 people who resigned have something up their sleeves.
Yeah.
And
I have
can
to
continue
imagine
to
they do
work in the industry.
to just up and quit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it-
was instead of maybe I don't know. I don't know if there was like any kind of negotiation that just didn't happen, but that was the shocking part to me. I've never seen the up and quit thing like that.
Yeah,
the-
I'm. Oh, sorry. Please.
Oh, the theory that I have is that they probably knew ahead of time that these negotiations weren't going to work out, and they have. I would not be surprised in the least to hear like later down the line, like a couple months from now, like when this all gets written about or whatever, that they had actually been slowly just kind of putting their ducks in a row
Yeah.
time, and like when meeting with new studios, like instead of giving them to Annapurna, just being like, hey, just it's still keep a lid on it. We're not sure yet, but hey, hold off on signing for this right now, because we might have something better for you later or whatever. So that wouldn't surprise me in the least,
Yeah.
but because that's really the only thing I can think of that makes any sense.
Yeah, like they all go
Yeah.
to
This
Devolver
strikes
or
me-
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
This strikes as a bit of an escapist and second wind kind of situation.
Yeah. I have to imagine. Yeah, that basically they knew that things were getting very bad, but if it's so bad that they all like had to agree to resign collectively, that makes me very scared about
Like Annapurna's ability to continue as a publisher,
Yes.
even if they hire up
exactly
and like fill those roles.
the
A lot of institutional knowledge just went out the window.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I mean, like, hey, I mean, because the only other reason that you do something like that all at the same time is you're trying to send a message. So
Yeah.
who knows? It could be that Annapurna, gets their shit together and like is like, okay, what will it take for you all to come back? And who knows? Maybe they all just come back instead. Who knows? I doubt it. But
yeah, this seems like
it's a pretty
a break.
to send though. So
I have one last thing to just say. I'll be quick. Which is that like the last Annapurna game I purchased was Lorelei and the Laser Eyes back in May. I love this game. It is probably going to be like, if it's not going to be my game of the year, it's absolutely high in the running, and that there's a bittersweetness to that now.
Yeah, it feels like whatever comes from Annapurna next, even if it's good, will be from a different era of Annapurna. And I'm glad we got whatever this era was in the games it produced, in spite of the scandals at certain studios that were involved. I'm glad we got this era of Annapurna. And whatever comes next, hopefully it retains some of that spirit. Last news item before we move on to talking about our favorite free gunners. So we're recording this on Saturday, September 14th. So I just realized I wrote the dates wrong in this agenda. I wrote Monday, September 10th. It's not a real date. It's Tuesday, September 10th, and Wednesday, September 11th. I apologize for that. On September 10th, we lived in a world where the most expensive console available that you could buy was retailing for $649 or $499 American dollar reduced. Or if you counting the OLED Steam 1 TB OLED Steam Deck as a console, $819. I actually have no idea what that costs south of the border. Probably in the $700-ish range somewhere. And then the next day, we're now in a world with a $960 console, or $700 US. And this PS5 Pro has $960. Does not include a disk drive. Does not include a stand. If you want a disk drive, that's going to cost you an additional $100 or $80, I believe, in the States.
The stand?
It doesn't come with a stand. And there's sales tax on top of that.
Yeah.
It's 13% here in Ontario. I calculated out. If I wanted a reasonable PS5 Pro experience, I'd be paying $1,197.78.
1,200 smackaroos.
That's very good quality PC price.
It's
insane.
It's possible that this thing makes a tidy profit. I don't think it's going to make a large profit, and I don't think Sony is insane enough to produce it in such commodities that it actually it doesn't. But dear Lord.
Yeah, I will say, on Wolfman's point, because I think he's 100% right. This makes me, what I was doing was I was waiting for the PS5 Pro to come out, because I thought it would be priced like the PS4 Pro.
Yeah.
Which is priced the exact same as the original retail price of the PS4. This is priced $310 more than a base PS5. And the PS5 itself is actually not decreased in price in Canada. It's actually increased in price. Yeah, in Japan, Canada, and a couple other places, the PS5 increased in price a couple years after release. And I believe the United States is one of the few markets where the price stayed constant. So, this thing is already expensive, and I was waiting for the Pro console to be released at the roughly the same price. And now they're saying the Pro console is $310 more. And this effectively means I'm probably skipping this gen.
Yeah,
I realize that I am unique and abnormal, and that there is going to be plenty of people out there, or enough people for Sony's preferences, that are going to say $960. That's fine. I'll just take out a line of credit on my home to buy this, and it's going to be fine, because there are lots of people in Canada who love to use their home as a little nest egg. So there are going to be plenty of graphics junkies who are going to go ahead and do this, and people like me are in the minority maybe. But it is annoying. I just wanted to note, on a personal level, I find this kind of enraging.
It's
yeah.
Yes.
Especially when it has been set in stone that the Pro model is the half-gen update. That's pretty much the launch price of one. And the other thing about that model is it shifts everything else's price down, which is now not happening.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, they're making refurbished models of refurbished versions of original PS5s, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah, no. I mean, what used to usually happen, right, is the Pro would launch at the old launch point price of what it was, $499, right? And then everything else would bump down a tier, so that the PS5 Slim would probably be $389, something like that, and then the PS5 original would be $350. So it was a place to jump into this generation if you missed it, right? And like Merve is saying, now I'm out. I'm not. That's not. It didn't filter anything down, so I'm not interested.
What are the?
There is a version of the.
thing?
Sorry, go ahead.
What are the specs on this thing? I see here about were games on base PS5 bad looking in any way. I have a PS5. They are not. Every game I've played on that console has looked fantastic, to the point where I don't know how much further you could even increase the graphical fidelity, short of just doing live action film.
Actually, though, I've seen some screenshots of Ratchet and Clank, and you can see some graphical higher levels of stuff. You can see more schmutz, but I don't think that's going to matter when you're actually playing a video game that's moving.
Yeah, it's the same thing that's happening with like JRPGs that have like a really, really stylistic like anime aesthetic. Like the thing like when they moved from PS2 to PS3, the one thing that you noticed about all the female characters is that their hair got longer and their outfits got more like more stuff on them. And then like the move from PS3 to PS4, they just did that like more so like just everybody had really like the hair is where you see it the most. That's why we have all those stupid little cross bangs on the forehead. I fucking hate that haircut. And it's everywhere. But like characters have a lot more just stuff on their body in general. They have a lot more physics. Their hair has a lot more jiggle bones and stuff. And at the but like on the PS5, you look at like these games. Like I didn't like Merv. You can speak to this because you played Tales of Arise. If Tales of Arise had come out on PS4, would it look that much different? Or I guess you played.
Probably not. I played it on PC.
Oh, you played on. Well, yeah, but does it basically look like a PS4 game? Like, would it look that much different?
It's Arise is a little bit weird because it's a mixture of anime and like it's anime aesthetics for the character models, but the environments are a mixture of realistic and cel shaded. It's hard to explain the aesthetic they're going for. It looks a little bizarre. It works in the game, but it's a little bizarre. Like I think you can make improvements and they'll be noticeable. I just don't think they're worth $310.
Yeah, because I mean, like the improvement that you could make is it's reaching, and I mean, I guess we can actually talk about this with Concord. Like one of the problems with the character designs is that weird uncanny valley shit it's got going on. Like after a certain point, if you increase the graphical fidelity too much, everything looks very strange and off-putting.
Go ahead.
I was thinking about, like, for me, it's... Or, this isn't the only thing, but I keep thinking about the fact that, like... Kappa, when you talked about, like, the pro version of a console coming out later in life, by the time the Pro console comes out later in life, that console has already established itself. Like, we would have the games, like, their cross-gen games would be less common. You'd have games that really felt like they actually took advantage of the hardware. And we do have that. There are games that are doing that, but also, I don't know. We're in this generation, and most of the games, most of the major games are still like available on the older consoles, even if they're not ideal on those older consoles. Like it doesn't feel like we need to buff up this generation. It feels like we kind of need this generation to start.
Yeah,
and I think the delays
still came out on PS4.
Yeah.
I think the delays during COVID was a big part of it, right? The availability of stuff was just not ahead, and I think this is PS5 wanting to capitalize more on its lead this console gen than anything. I think they see a premium space for their super fans, and this, I know this might make some people mad. I feel like this is an Apple move almost, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, I thought it was gonna make some people mad, but no, this feels like an Apple move to me. This is like, look, if you really are committed to our here's our big old, you're the best, you're the number one PS fan, you buy this, you really prove that, you're in our ecosystem and we love you. But I think that's going to be a smaller group than they're expecting. I don't think this is an entry console for anyone.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I think this thing only exists because they started working on it in 2020 and they really hadn't considered that the market would not be in a place where a $700 vanity plate was maybe symbolic of something else, something that feels like almost like it. Like I don't own a 4K TV. I have a Series X, and I have 3 games on it, like 3 Series X games for it. Resident Evil 4, which is available on PS4, it's just not as good. Control Ultimate Edition, which was made for Xbox One, and Baldur's Gate 3. We have these like I have a rule where I try to like only get a new console if I feel like I can identify like 10 games on it that I can get on there that either are exclusive there or ideal there. And there aren't that, like, what Sony games, the only Sony games that I can think of are Astro's Playroom and Astro Bot.
Yeah, they don't really have exclusives in the same way anymore. They have timed exclusives. Like when Forbidden West came out, it came out on like what? It came out on the PlayStation first, and then it was like 9-ish months before it got released on PC and Xbox or something.
But I mean, I think, yeah, that's the thing. I think if you take that same $1,200 and you put that into a decent, higher, actually mid to upper level gaming PC, you're playing the Sony exclusives pretty much at the same time anyway, because a lot of their stuff is going there anyway, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, that's a weird box to put yourself in, especially when you're not competing against console prices anymore. You're competing against gaming PC prices. That's wild.
Yeah. And the whole point of a console was like, I feel like so much of the point of a console is that you don't have to deal with the stress of a PC or theoretically the price. You're just given something and don't have to work on it. But now, like,
it's adding fragmentation into it, which is the problem PCs had forever, right? And you know, the whole thing with consoles was, don't worry, just buy a console, it'll just work. And now, I mean, I think you started to see it with Xbox S and X, right? Where it was like, hey, you know, this game don't run great in S, and then it started to slowly push to like, well, maybe you need a Series X to run these types of games, right? I think Sony is really putting itself in a different spot where, you know, if you really are pushing a whole Pro that's got very different hardware, you're now asking developers, hey, make a game that takes advantage of this, and who knows if they are. I mean, so GTA 6 hits finally, right? Are they going to release a PS5 Pro version, or is it just going to be upscaled, or is it going to be like...
It will be upscaled. It won't be in 60 FPS.
Right. So if it's not hitting the 60 FPS anyway, right, I feel like nothing's hitting 60 FPS consistently on console, which was what we were promised. I think both console makers kind of over promise and under deliver there, right? But
the graphics could only get so much better. Like you said, Quinley, we're basically at the point where you can either hit the uncanny valley or just sort of surf around it. And so the only real, and theoretically, I guess, the only real way to improve is through technical specs, making smoother frame rates, or using technology to do things you couldn't, like Ratchet's, like, dimension hopping, or Spider-Man's, you know, super, like, hyper-focused fast travel. These are...
I will say, we do have these conversations about the uncanny valley, like, almost every gen, like, how much better can graphics get? And they always improve. But, like, I think that's because our perception of what the uncanny valley is shifts as we see graphical improvements. So, like, we see we're approaching the uncanny valley, and then that shifts, like, next generation where the uncanny valley ends up being.
I think there's room to improve, but I think that where the real, you know, frame rate's got to get consistent. I mean, like, I'm on 3 generations of gaming PCs of, if I want to lock something at 60 FPS, it's not even an option, right? I'm mostly locking games to 90 or 100 now, just because that's what my monitor refresh rate is around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same here.
But I've taken that as a given for, I mean, 15, 20 years now on gaming PCs, right? So you got to get that 60, that consistent 60 needs to be what they focus on, I think, above performance, right? And then past performance, I think where I see my console lag that I don't see my PC anymore is in a lot of, like, stuff like physics, right? Or lighting. You know, I play something on my PC and I play it on my Series X, and it just, the physics all kind of feel like I'm chunking at spots. And then lighting, you know, lighting looks so much better for me in PC, and it's because of Nvidia's kind of made some leaps and bounds, I think, above a lot of what we're still using in our consoles, when it comes to stuff like DLSS and ray tracing, that I've started to take for granted because I've now had 2 graphics cards with that stuff. You know what I mean? 2 generations worth of graphics cards where I don't know for sure. I think they announced the PS5 Pro is going to do some ray tracing. I'm not sure how.
It's going to have some support.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly to what level, but some of that stuff is like real ray tracing, and some of it's like simulated or whatever. But I'll be interested to see if you flip ray tracing on, what it does to your frames. I'd be really interested to see that.
Yeah.
Probably you're back down to 30.
Yeah.
Maybe even 20 at that rate.
But yeah, I don't know. This to me, I saw the price. I saw that it's not coming with disk drives and this and that. I was like, yeah, that's an Apple move, man. I don't know. I don't like this feeling where it's like you gouge your fan base for staying loyal to you. It just drives me nuts, But at the same time, that's not putting me into their ecosystem. I know we've talked about it a lot, but
I do think the comparison to Apple is apt. It's like when they removed the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack.
And they told you it was a good thing.
Yeah, and it's still a pain.
Yeah, and what I
Gigantic
actually was hoping for is that this would drop the price of the PS5, and I'm like, look, I can make a 350 or like anything around that price, or I just jump into the PS5. But I don't see that price coming down.
I think
much,
I think we're just at a point where there's only so much you can get from a loss leader.
Mm-hmm.
Sony and Microsoft have spent almost their entire existence as gaming companies surviving, or theoretically surviving, off selling their consoles at a loss, because they'll make it all back and then some through software sales. And it turns out that there are limits to how well that can function, and I think the final topic of the night kind of shows that.
Yeah, I mean, what's the PS5's retail right now? $499, $599?
It's $499 US,
Yeah.
$649 Canadian.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't really brought in yet, if that price dropped $150, that's bringing people in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
that would bring me in. I was hoping for a PS5 Pro launching at the same price, or a severely discounted PS5 base because of the launch of the PS5 Pro. Neither happened, so I guess I'm not playing Astrobot this year.
Okay, so I do have a question for the PC. Like, I have a PS5 and a PC, but I, for the very longest, did not have a gaming PC, which is why I had a console. From what it sounds like, you all have, pretty high-end gaming PCs. Aside from Astrobot, what would be the point of getting a PS5?
I should just note, I don't have a high-end gaming PC. I'm literally using this on a relatively old, Apple desktop.
I'm on my phone.
Yeah, I primarily play Nintendo stuff at Nintendo, and have historically alternated between Sony and Microsoft every other generation.
Oh,
I mean, I'm on a 4090, everything as top of the line as I can get, and the only thing I would say is that I wait until the reviews and the patches really hit for the Sony games. But I played God of War on my PC. You know what I mean? I played Horizon. There's not a big deal, and as somebody who hates the PlayStation controllers, it's like the best of both worlds. I'm sitting there playing with an Xbox controller, So yeah, I don't know. I don't see that there's a system seller on either side right now, because Game Pass, obviously you can just get the what did they call it now? Oh boy, Game Pass Plus Pecan Perfecta, whatever it is.
Game Pass Blue Perfect. I love this.
Yeah, I don't know what
Game Pass is a verb now.
Yeah, but you get the Game Pass with the the PC tier, right? So you get that, you can pretty much play everything that Microsoft's going to release. You wait 3-4 months for the PlayStation release, wait for a patch or two to hit so it stops running like shit, then you're playing the PlayStation game. They pushed everyone basically into the PC market, and that's in Microsoft's favor. I don't think they care, but I don't know why Sony would price this much, because if you were a person looking, I would say at that price point, I mean, gaming PCs look a lot sweeter, hey, a couple of extra $100, and not only am I playing PlayStation, I'm playing Xbox, and I'm playing everything on Steam. It's a no-brainer to me right now. And we talked about this, I think, very early in this gen, that I thought everything was going to slowly get pushed to PC, and now I'm actually kind of seeing it like as the optimal place if you really want to play stuff.
For me, and I realize I'm not representative of the market, the big shift was like 2017, 2018, when a lot of the quirky like Japanese games that would have been PlayStation exclusives by default started getting ported to PC, and then a bunch of them started getting ported to Xbox as well. And like the PC ports stopped being hot garbage coming out of Japan, which made PC gaming viable if you were a total weeb trash like me. And that just completely, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like against Sony's cinematic sad dad adventures. I don't have any kind of special contempt for them, but I'm not so interested in them that I'll go pay $80, $90 for them day one.
I care about exactly one of those franchises, and God of War Ragnarok is perfectly fine on PS4.
Yeah.
There you go. So like, I'm not really in the market for a version of the PS5 that costs $960 just to play Astrobot. Yeah. Hopefully Astrobot eventually gets ported to PC, and then, hey, I might even buy a DualSense to enjoy all the fun DualSense features.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that's not happening. It's not.
Well then, I guess I'll never play Astrobot.
Yeah.
If they wanted me to play Astrobot, they should have priced the console $310 cheaper, and then we could have a conversation.
I think that's the biggest story for me personally in this whole play is I was not ever going to be in the market for the Pro, but I would have been in the market for the 5. But unless there's some price drops, and I don't think there's going to be because they priced it so much higher, right? It's a real shame, and I think it's them kind of realizing they're the top console right now, and that's why they're pulling it off. But no, I mean, this was a console I didn't buy a Sony or this is a generation I didn't buy a Sony or Nintendo console. Or no, I'm sorry, I did buy a Switch, but I would buy a Switch too anytime they're going to release it, and it hasn't come around yet. So
it'll happen when it happens.
I mean, like, the only reason at this point that I would buy a Switch 2 is that like there's a handful of exclusives that I would buy a Switch 2 for. And like the other thing or advantage with the Switch 2 is that still that hybrid console setup is something that fits into my life very well. Yeah. And being able to do things like play Ring Fit, like these are experiences you can't get on a PlayStation. So these things still fit into my life. And as much as I would love to play certain Nintendo games, just like port them to PC, like 3 years after release, that I think that'd be ideal. I'm willing to put up with it, even if I'm a little resentful.
It is just like there are things you have to do. You don't necessarily have to keep all the games on your hardware, but you have to do something. You know what I mean? Like everyone has to. The economics of this industry are just changing in ways that are, yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you are right. Like in the sense that the economics of this have changed in kind of a self-imposed way through pursuing ever larger games with ever greater graphical fidelity, requiring ballooning budgets.
Yeah.
It's kind of necessitated going after new revenue streams. Yep. And those new revenue streams, like the untapped well was putting games on PC. And the thought was, if we put games on PC, well, that's a market we haven't tapped. Our market research shows there's very little overlap. These are people who wouldn't have bought our consoles or wouldn't have bought these games on these consoles.
Yeah, and it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy of like, oh, well, they didn't buy it, so they must not like it. So, you know what I mean? So we've got to keep pushing that market.
I do also think it's worth noting Sony has gotten a lot of financial success on its PCs. Xbox has gotten a lot of success by putting their stuff on PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
So it can work for those companies. But
it's like why, a couple months ago, people were like, oh, Xbox is dead. Xbox is dead. I was like, why? Because they're making more money? Like,
well,
I mean, if you just look at the money of
that's actually the thing, though. My point was, like, yes, they'll make more money on each individual game.
Right.
But long term, you've trained people to step out of that ecosystem.
Exactly.
And maybe they don't need that lock-in in the long term, and maybe Microsoft can be extremely lucrative as effectively just a publisher. For me, I don't care. For me, Microsoft is a publisher.
Right.
They buy a game. They make a game. I buy it. Fantastic. They don't care. They got my money. But when you've got that kind of lock-in, you're not just making money as a publisher, making money off the license fee of each sale of the game, plus a cut of each microtransaction on that platform. Yeah. Once you end that revenue stream, you really have to make it up with vastly increased sales everywhere else.
Exactly.
Right, but don't you think that Microsoft's been positioned?
Are they succeeding that? I don't know.
Part of the problem is that if you weaken that like ecosystem by spreading it outwards, then that isn't as useful for all your other revenue streams. So you only get so much out of individual Sea of Thieves sales.
Yeah, you get the profit margin on the sale, but you don't get the license fee, and that's really what it boils down to. Like, you're not getting a third party license fee if you don't have a platform.
You know what I'm wondering? And all of a sudden, like all the talks of them putting, PlayStation putting some of their exclusives on PC. I used to have a Sony Vaio. Why didn't they just bring back the Vaio? Why didn't they just make their own gaming laptop again?
Yeah, and it's interesting. And I think part of it is because it would be on Windows, right? So maybe that's part of it, right?
I guess, but like you could just do what Microsoft. They could just make a deal with Microsoft where they could because my friend is convinced that because PlayStation games are now going on PC, that Sony is going to try to have their own PC distribution platform similar to Steam or Epic Games, but for the PC. And I don't see that happening. I don't know why they would do that.
Seems
they were about to release a Sony PC or Sony gaming laptop again, where that would just come pre-installed or something. That's the only way that would make sense, but they're not doing that.
Yeah.
As Tim Sweeney has learned the hard way, the capital costs involved in making that happen are gigantic. The dev costs for a platform as complicated as Steam, or even as simple as EGS, it's really complicated under the hood, are way more than what might appear from the outside. PlayStation would have to invest so much money for so few sales just to get that platform up and running. I get where the thinking comes from, but if you think about it a little, if you stop and reflect on it a little bit, you'll realize the likelihood of this happening is so slim.
I do think it's also worth pointing out that Microsoft is selling Game Pass on PC for cheaper than Game Pass on Xbox. So they are effectively, if not by plot, they want you to play on PC more than play on Xbox.
I think the pricing structure is more that Game Pass on Xbox is doing so much better than PC Game Pass, or in terms of sales, that they want to keep the PC Game Pass price low to continue to entice PC players.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Actually, this reminds me though, we do have one last story that it doesn't have to be a big one, but I do think it's worth mentioning. Microsoft has the new standard tier for Xbox, and a couple games that were on the old standard tier are not on there.
Yeah, I think they dropped off a couple first
Yeah,
party ones and stuff. Yeah.
It is, I think, just it's emblematic of the fact that everything under the ultimate tier has always been, like, at best an afterthought for them.
Yeah, which is a shame. I think, like, this was originally sold as you subscribe, you get all the first party stuff.
Yeah.
Which is probably a deal that was too good to be true.
Because
in the
it
long term.
was too good to be true.
I mean, again, we're saying that with the benefit of hindsight. Like,
I mean, that's true, but I do think it's worth noting that, like, it came in right when we started to see issues with TV streaming services. Figuring out, like, those problems were becoming apparent in other fields.
Yeah, like, it's like you see this with Netflix doing things like secondary licensing. It does happen. And, you know, maybe there's an argument that the economics of game development are different than the economics of film and TV development. But, yeah, like, you're not, once you kind of saturate a platform, like, each individual new piece of content on it isn't necessarily bringing in additional eyeballs or additional subscribers. So it's more like retention at that point.
Yeah, but yeah, it's I think it's just kind of, I think it's all emblematic of both, like, the corporate issues and also the economic problems that these corporate issues are both causing and reacting to.
That's very well put. And speaking of corporate issues and financial and commercial disaster, we're going to talk about Concord and live services in a little bit. But first we're going to take a short break so that we can empty our bladders and talk.
Google Concord frantically.
Google what this game is all about.
Kappa?
We'll be back very shortly. Welcome back to episode 105 of the Avocado Games Cast. QuinleyThorne, Wolfman Jew, and the Kappa and I are all here to talk about Concord from Firewalk Studios, owned by PlayStation. A game that was a multiplayer hero shooter that came out on August 23rd of this year. On September 3rd, An imminent shutdown was announced, and then it was shut down on September 6th, giving it a lifespan of 2 weeks. It's estimated to have sold only 25,000 units, which would make it probably the biggest first-party flop of the high-definition era.
Yeah, it's certainly one, and possibly the biggest of Sony's entire history.
You know, asking about who had a chance to play it, if you didn't pick it up basically at launch, you didn't, because if you wanted to wait for reviews and stuff, they weren't good, and then
it's
everybody
actually
fixed the game.
It's actually worse. Yeah, it's worse than just being delisted. Sony has a patch that actively removes it from your library.
Yeah, PT style, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's very shocking. I don't think anybody had on their list this game was going to flop so bad it was going to be delisted and removed from people's hard drives and mass refunds given out. Even though mass is kind of in quotes there, because I don't think.
Yeah. Wait, in Sony's history, you're telling me this did worse than Folklore?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this. It's hard to imagine anything doing worse than this.
And you don't really even see like a fan base that seemed appalled that this was getting, maybe
No,
the
reason is there were absolutely people who did like Concord. It's just that the number was so small that, like, it's and when we say small, we mean like on Steam.
There was like 64 players or something. Like I think the highest was 300.
The highest was 697.
Yikes! Yeah.
Dear listeners, I spent the entire day aggressively researching as much as I could about this game. I am a fount of knowledge of Concord, a game that literally now exists in the past tense. Concord is not a game. Concord was a game.
God, that's wild.
Yeah. The surprising thing too is that there wasn't, and there still hasn't, as of been today, hasn't been like we're going to relaunch this. We've got plans for the future. I think it's dead, right? Like
no. It's. I don't really know how it can't be if Sony's literally erasing it from people's people's hard drives.
I think the comparison would maybe be Redfall, but even though that got refunds for their DLC packs, I mean,
there was a baseline, as far as I can tell, kind of basic ass like single player offline mode for Redfall that you can own, and presumably you can still play on Game Pass or buy on its own. This is, you compared it to PT, and there really isn't, like, I guess the closest wouldn't even be a game. It would be like companies like Warner Brothers actively removing stuff from their libraries, except it's not even that, because this is something people bought.
Right.
Yeah, I still have PT. Like, I just can't download it again, but I still have it.
Yeah, I can't believe that this happened in such a fast timeline too. I mean, it beyond the game just not even being able to find its footing. I mean, the game itself never even, I think, found anybody who was interested in it, or even some of the reviews were still coming out because it was a live service game, right?
Yeah. Just for reference on the sales numbers, Quinley mentioned earlier Folklore. For reference, according to VG charts, Folklore sold 320,000 copies worldwide, which would put it at an order of magnitude more in sales than Concord's estimated sales.
It was considered a flop at the time.
Yeah.
It was definitely considered a flop.
That's
crazy.
Just for, actually, I think this might be a fun comparison, and this is for you, Merve. So when Concord's estimated sales are 25,000, which is basically like a hundredth, a thousandth of what they needed to be profitable, it was outsold by Emio.
Man, that's
wow.
I think it was even on like the Sony on the release date, wasn't it like the 32nd best-selling game of the week or something? Like
37th.
shocking. Yeah, shockingly bad. I mean, you can't make that number up. And I think at first it was kind of like this ghoulish, like how bad is this game going to be? And then you kind of started to see like, okay, we're talking like an all-time, like bad game. And I think that once those numbers started to come in like that, people were like, wow, what is Sony even going to do here? I think we got our answer really quick,
I feel like this is gonna be like in the couple of years. It's gonna be in the Guinness Book of World Records for for something. Just because everybody knows that you just go to the Guinness Book of World Records and say, "Hey, we have this record. Can you verify it that it hasn't been broken?" Okay, put us in the book, because that's what they did for Deadly Premonition as most polarizing game. Like, I feel like Concord is gonna be in the Guinness Book of World Records for like
most Haymars and Lennoxes.
Something.
And I'm trying to think of like, for all of us, I think we were kind of the opposite of sold. We were all out when they announced that with that first gameplay trailer hit. It just looked super generic, right? It had the feel of a Guardians of Galaxy, but not really as, I don't know, like didn't feel as team friendly maybe, or like, Guardians of the Galaxy does a lot of that found family stuff, right? That kind of builds,
Well, Guardians of the Galaxy also like has a plot,
right?
And this doesn't. Like, you don't get to see Lennox and One-Off grow, or if you did, it would have been through cinematic cutscenes they would have released every few months, which don't exist now and never will.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be in the secret. What's that secret lab?
Secret level.
Secret level.
Yeah, secret level. Forgot about that.
So, yeah, just for our listeners, Secret Level is in on anthology series that's going to be on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I think it's by the Love, Death, and Robots guys.
Yeah, Blur Studio. Yep. So they are making an anthology series based on various video game properties, a lot of which are pretty iconic, but one curious inclusion was Concord. Presumably Sony paid a lot of money to have them make a Concord episode. But Concord no longer exists as a game, and presumably will not exist as a franchise going forward. We still don't know. There's a small possibility they bring it back. I'm guessing they won't, but you never know. But for a game that doesn't exist, that's a pretty expensive ad.
Well, and this
right?
is probably, this might have been, it's especially strange because the marketing of this was very strange. Earlier you mentioned kind of the strange, like, creepypasta viral marketing for, again, MEO. Because that was a game that was very clearly made on a small budget and didn't warrant like a really large budget. This is a huge game. This was, in theory, Sony's main game of 2024. Like this, and it got a very big state in their May State of Play show.
Spent a lot of time in development too. So, Firerock Studios was, I believe, founded by ex-Bungie.
It was.
They started development on the game even before they were bought by Sony. They said it was in development for 8 years. Don't know if that was actually like full development or whether it was just like tossing around ideas for first couple of years. But let's say at least 5 years in active, like they were building this game.
Firewalk was founded in 2018. I think it's completely possible that they were tossing out ideas before it was founded. But the lead character designer did like guess that it was 8 years, so which conveniently would have started development after the release of Overwatch.
Which this game is. So it's funny because it's like the like overall genre setup of Overwatch in terms of being a multiplayer hero shooter, but with the game feel of something like Halo or Destiny PvP. It's not very twitchy. It's very like high TTK, like you're gonna be alive for a while kind of shooter. Which is like, for me, that's the kind of shooter I don't want to say brought up on. I don't think my parents were very happy that I played shooters when I was a kid, but like it's the kind of shooter that got me into the genre. Like I cut my teeth on Command & Conquer Renegade, which is among the highest TTK multiplayer shooters out there. And then moved on to stuff like Halo. So for old timers like me, this might be appealing. For the kind of audience that plays multiplayer shooters now, you have your niche, like lovers of Halo and your lovers of Destiny PvP, but it's not really the same audience that's going and playing Overwatch or Apex or Valorant.
Yeah.
And I think that's there's the mechanical part of it. There's it didn't feel like it was something interesting at the time. Just kind of like the worst, worst combination you really could have for a game to just launch into, just be like pushed out into the world with no fan base and hope to find a market.
I think that's a really good point because the marketing cycle for this game was utterly bizarre. The way this game was announced, it was announced in a way that made it look like some sort of space, like single player space adventure,
like a fun space romp.
Yeah. It was just revealed with like a logo essentially that made it look like it was a space game. And it is a space game, but it's a multiplayer hero shooter, which we found out from a press release that came out at the same time. Then there was a cinematic and gameplay reveal at a Sony presser, and then a few months later we were in beta, and then a few weeks after that the game was out. And it was a very compressed cycle with no time to take in player feedback, with no time to build a fan base by word of mouth.
The second...
And, like, the announcement of this game in the first place didn't even make it clear what kind of game it was.
No, nothing... Like, it's honestly hard to imagine a pre-release cycle being worse. Like, being plausibly worse, other than, I don't know, like an actual scandal about the people making it. It also doesn't help that Concord... Concord was made to be a live service game, and Sony bought it because in 2022 they announced a very strong plan to pivot to live services. They would buy studios that were making live services. They would buy studios to make live services. They would, I don't want to say force, but maybe encourage is the more tactful way to say that that's what they would do to studios that were known for single player games like Naughty Dog. Sony fans who tend to like their, bespoke, really pretty cinematic, like ultra well written games didn't really want that. And so in 2023 there were six live service games shown, 4 of them made by Sony, including Helldivers 2, which did come out and has been a success, albeit one that really feels like it's constantly spiraling out of control.
Just to clarify, Helldivers 2 is just published by Sony,
sorry.
Made by them.
That makes
90% of their player base as of June 30th.
Yeah, and like what they have kind of seems to like seesaw based on the battle pass.
So already you had Sony fans who really don't want Sony to be engaging with this hyper predatory system, and now they're coming out with 4 with a planned 12 because they wanted 12, and all for games that would basically be competing with each other, because that's what live services do. They compete with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. If you're gonna lock someone into one game, you have to hope that you strike hard and fast, and then you don't lose them. I mean, I can predict right now. I bet you that already. Helldivers is losing people probably to Space Marine and every other game that's coming out right now. That is a hard ask to say, we want you to make a live service game that locks people in for the next 5, 6, 7 years, with the support that requires, which Bungie managed to do, but then was leaking money hand over fist to do it,
I also want to just put it on the record that former Sony boss Jim Ryan was fully aware that this would involve these games cannibalizing each other and counted on it because he would wanted it so that only the strongest ones would survive.
Yeah, great idea, right?
Yeah,
It seems like a better use of their investment would have been to make live service games in different genres.
Yeah.
So you have one that's a shooter, you have one that's more of like
Space game, a Wild West game,
yeah, like a Wild West game, where like you do something like say Honkai Star Rail, which is like your turn-based live service game. You do something that's more like strategy.
maybe,
and then maybe you don't have these markets cannibalizing each other as much.
well, but and I mean, like, the issue is that, and this is a problem ultimately of Sony's own making, but like through the like there's reasons why they're doing this, which is that Sony's games are insanely expensive. Spider-Man 2 costs 3 times as much as Spider-Man 3. These games are, many of these games are successful. They do make back the money that it costs to make them and then some, but the actual model is nuts. And so the solution would be, instead of making a one-off purchase, a game that's a one-off purchase, you make a game that can exist as a forever game and endlessly retain people and be used as an endless source of revenue. But the problem is that even if you succeed and even if you get past that cannibalizing stage to actually be a success, the money that in time and labor that it costs to make these games, it will endlessly feed into it. Your live service either dies or it delays dying.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, you're always having to keep your audience happy, which is not easy. You're always having to figure out, like, okay, what is this patch gonna have? What is this weapon? What is this armor set? They're getting bored 6 months in. What are we gonna launch?
And the people who keep the fan base happy, like your community managers, are always the first to get laid off. And that actually ends up exacerbating things because you end up with a non-blanketed fan base that gets angry and makes things toxic for everyone else, or else just leaves.
Because, and there were people who hated Concord because it was a live service, and there were people who hated Concord because they thought it looked cool and then found out it was a live service.
Wait, I would have possibly given Concord a shot if it was free to play and had good reviews.
It got good reviews, technically. Like,
I didn't see many. I saw a lot of, like, there's promise for this, but not yet. But I mean, out the gate,
I'm just gonna look at the Open Critic score.
$40 is a lot to ask. I mean, I thought it was $29. I thought that was a lot to ask, but yeah.
But isn't that
64 on Open Critic?
That's
6 out of 10 is not, like, you know what I mean. That I bet you most of those are like, there's some promise, but it needs to cook, And a lot of those live games do. I mean, they just need that time. That Destiny didn't find a fan base out the gate. Sea of Thieves. Bad launch. A lot of those live services take a little bit of time, and I think there's a group of people who want to see that you're going to commit to a live service game. Actually, you're going to get the patches, you're going to make the improvements.
And it's probably fair to assume to treat any Sony live service coming in with suspicion.
Right.
And I have to wonder, and I don't know if this is just a general feeling. I have to wonder too. Like, Sony, at least to my mind, the live services that, like, define them are, like, Final Fantasy 14, which had its own initial disastrous launch, and fighting games.
Yeah.
Fighting games, to me, like, when I think of a live service for Sony, I think Street Fighter, I think Tekken, I think Guilty Gear, I think all of these games that were initially Sony exclusives. That's what I think of for a live service for Sony, and I'm just kind of like, their models are very similar. Like, they're releasing characters, they're releasing cosmetics. I mean, like, God, Street Fighter has a trailer for, like, a collab, like, it seems like every single week now, and it's like, why didn't they just do that? Or, like, why did they think that they could, like, muscle in on that?
Did they have a collab with, like, Exoprimal?
Yes.
Or did I make that up?
Yeah. I think they want to because they get a percentage off every Street Fighter thing sold, but they want to have the whole thing.
You know, and I think one thing to remember a lot with maybe like some of those early out the gate, live service games is that you always have to show that there's a community worth building, right? Because you're asking people to get together and not just sell themselves on their game, but hey, I need to bring my 10 buddies who are all playing, whatever game we're all playing. Is, hey guys, let's jump off a Call of Duty and let's give this, game a shot. I think that's even why you see stuff like the finals and some of these other like flash in the pan shooters. They catch on and then they move on because you got to keep a friend group together, and that's almost impossible these days, to move 5, 6, 7 people to a game when you're trying to sell them all on a $40 game, and all of them are like, well, why should we move from COD or Battlefield or whatever our game is? Why should we move from that to another game? And then you're trying to sell them on, this game that,
it's a circle. It's a whirlpool. Like
Right.
the bad press and creates more bad press, and it turns into a thing where people who might actually love the world of Concord won't want to play it because it's this cycle of
But I mean that's the hard ask, right? In this is to say, we want you to play our game. We want 4 of your friends to play our game, and if you don't bring 4 of your friends, our game's going to be boring, right?
And Kappa, to your point, like speaking of Tekken 8, like I started playing just with a group of like people online because I wanted to get better at Tekken, and all the people I was going to play Tekken with started having kids. So, I mean, good for them, but
I know how that goes. Yeah.
but like I started playing with them like in April, and we play a couple of days a week, and it's been really fun. But the thing that struck me about it is like when I first joined, they're like, so how long have you guys been playing Tekken? They're like, this is our first one, and I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, this is our first one. Our friend had been playing it for a really long time, the friend that invited me. And he's like, yeah, he'd been playing for a really long time, and he convinced all of us to buy it, and we've been playing it ever since. Like, one of the friends he convinced to play it, like, loves it more than everybody else in the group, to the point where I'm really the only one he plays with regularly. And they're like, how long have you been playing Tekken? I'm like, I've been playing Tekken for almost 20 years. This is your first one, and, like, they're good. They're really good. And I'm just like, but this is also, like, not the first time I've heard this. Like, for some reason, this particular Tekken entry just it hit gangbusters, and a lot of the people playing are brand new to Tekken. I don't know why. Some are brand new to fighting games. I don't know why you'd start with this one.
Would be like in 6 months, let's say, hey guys, we're all gonna stop playing Tekken because I want to get into Mortal Kombat, right? And then I'm enjoying this. I finally got good. I've learned this character. I don't know, I don't want to learn all this other stuff. That's what Sony is trying to do with, was trying to do until I guess they realized what a terrible idea it was. But yes, selling people on a new experience isn't always a no-brainer. It's not like it was 20 years ago where a new game comes out, we play the new game, people
because was that in like 3 other games coming out that year or something?
Exactly. Yeah.
There is one thing I've been thinking of Kappa though, was something you pointed out that like you would consider trying it if it had been free to play. Mm-hmm. Much like Helldivers 2, Concord used a like budget $40 price with no extra buy-in. They said they would set up a store for cosmetic microtransactions, but that it wouldn't include a battle pass, it wouldn't include like gotcha elements. And this is like an unbelievably predatory market. The model of free-to-play is incredibly unhealthy for game design, for economics, for the treatment of players. It's also, I think, very bad for the devaluation of games as actual monetary products. Like, I
Right.
think it devalues it across free-to-play games and across big-budget games. It devalues their actual intrinsic worth. I think it's that streaming services are also a big part, or subscription services are also a huge part of that, because it makes you more accustomed to the idea that these things are free to begin with. So we're in this strange situation where games are costing more than ever to make, and especially if you want to be this like AAA type of Sony game, but also we as consumers are trained to value games as worth less and less. And so this leads to this game coming out that wants to have a more healthy economic model, and it is actively being punished for it.
Well, yeah, but I think the counterpoint to that would be it's not a good game. You know, if I
mean-
can go play Overwatch for free and get twice the experience for free, you've got to sell me on your $40, you know? And I don't think that they did that out the gate with, like, you know, generic character models that don't really feel fun. No real story
Really?
that I saw, you know?
In a strange marketing campaign where the first teaser is just a logo and doesn't even tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
So, I mean, I agree with you. Like, you know,
bizarre.
you can sell a game for whatever you can sell it for, but I think if the market right now is telling you this type of game is, you know, a freemium experience, if you're going to tell me, okay, well, this is a $4 one, you got to deliver.
But the thing is, I also don't know if this game would have succeeded as free-to-play anyway. The reception was so negative, like, that I don't think it... Like, maybe it would have lasted longer than this. I don't think it would have actually gotten a significant audience. Yeah.
Guaranteed, at least free to play, it would have lasted longer than 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, but...
Because I think that's slowly kind of what Microsoft has been proving a lot with Game Pass, is if you just give a game an audience, you know, for 6 months, 6 days even sometimes, you know, that's what you need to build on.
But we're also finding out that a lot of the companies that have been on Game Pass have been struggling because of the fact that people are playing them for free and then not buying them. I think Sega specifically mentioned that the Yakuza, that Like a Dragon has been struggling because even though it's been getting a lot of attention, that actually hasn't been translating into into an actual monetary compensation.
Yeah, I mean,
and the sad thing with the Yakuza in particular was, like, there was one point back in like 2016. I remember getting the news that Yakuza 5 was not going to come out stateside because of that. And then in September of 2016, Yakuza 5 came out on PlayStation Plus, so a whole bunch of people played it for free, and that gave it a huge boost in an audience. And now it's like we're back at square one.
Yeah,
it's sad. That's sad.
Yeah, it's a thing where the value of going onto a of a subscription service would be that, like, it can allow you to reach an audience you wouldn't have, but then the reverse, it doesn't necessarily lead to people making the jump. And it can really work. Like, obviously, Palworld, it really worked for Palworld. I think it worked for Yakuza 7, but it's not working for Infinite Wealth.
Yeah.
Palworld actually made a lot of sales even outside of Game Pass.
And I think
it was a smash hit everywhere.
I think that right now, Space Marine, giant smash hit, right? And I think that it's maybe borderline a live service game. You know, we'll see where it kind of ends up going. But, like, I think if you're selling people the product they want, I think there's still an opportunity to make a ton of money. And, I mean, Palworld obviously swam in it for, you know, months and months and months. And I think they even said that they don't want to change their business model.
They did. No, but but they specifically said that they didn't want to change to a, like, free-to-play model.
Right.
Yeah.
But
so
what happens a lot with live service games is you don't get to make that choice because the game fundamentally stops working if you don't have a critical mass of players, right? I was there for the slow death of Anthem, right?
Oh, you played Anthem, huh?
Oh yeah,
Goodness.
oh yeah.
I played the demo.
Yeah, and
it was all right.
I didn't touch it at all.
And I mean, you know what happens? Like, at some point, you just end up with not having enough people to play the game. You can't do the missions, and then the game just slowly kind of dies from there.
Yeah.
And live service has to have that X amount of people playing, or you just don't get to do the game.
Yeah, I think like something that is really like a very concise picture of just kind of the sad state of affairs of live service type games is there's a subreddit, I think it's called Argacha or something.
Oh yeah.
And every week they do a ranking of like the top 10 whatever gacha games and stuff, and it seems like at first that it's like, oh, you can see like what new stuff is coming out, what new games are trending, what people are playing, that sort of thing. But somebody pointed out that the other purpose it serves is to see when the game you are playing drops out of the top 10 and you know an end of service is coming.
Yeah, it's again, it's you.
That's the other thing it gets used for.
Yeah.
I guess that list probably always has Contact Collection on it, because that game is popular as hell. So Contact Collection is the official game of the Avocado Gamescast. We established that about 50 episodes ago. Gotta love those ship
I remember Reflection had, Blue Reflection Light, which came out on the PS5 or PS4 and then PS5 port. One of my favorite games on that.
Wait, wasn't that the game where the entire world was women, but then in the gacha version, for some reason, you played as a male character?
Yes. Anyway, it lasted 9 months. It ended its service, I believe, in
just like a man would in a women's world.
and it's it's gone. All of it is gone, and apparently, all of the story and lore and stuff that would have answered questions that were raised in the console game are just not gonna get answered now. And I'm pretty sure it effectively killed the series. We're not getting any more Blue Reflection. At least the way that the game creator wrote his blog post about it, it sounded like a send off. No, we're done.
I think that's kind of, I think kind of famously with Google. People started to lose faith in their product support because it was oh, well, if this thing doesn't take off, Google's going to cancel it, right? Or and then it used to be remember when Netflix, they're going to give it a chance on Netflix, it's going to have a chance. And then now it's every time something gets good, Netflix cancels it, right?
Well, I think part of that is because just Netflix, a lot of that is Netflix being just badly run, but part of it is that I think this is kind of the inevitability from creating a model where people pay money to get services, but those individual pieces of product don't make money. Right.
But I think that one of the things that Sony could run into, the danger of is people start to see, okay, well, remember I was really into Concord, and then that got canceled before it even got a chance to get its feet out from under it.
Well,
invested to begin with.
Right.
Yeah, so what does that mean then for upcoming Horizon live service game or fair games? Horizon I'm not so worried about because that's established IP.
Don't say about Marathon.
Yeah.
I'm suspicious of.
Oh no, absolutely. That initial trailer was slick. That is one of the few game trailers, I will actively go back and watch that trailer. I really, really liked it. I haven't played the original series, but my husband loved it. I watched him play it. I was genuinely excited. And then, Marathon is an asymmetrical loot shooter.
How excited is your... Yeah, how excited is your husband that they turned his single-player FPS series into a multiplayer extraction shooter?
Okay.
They all had multiplayer components, to be fair.
The trailer was so cool. It was so good, and we were so excited. And then we read that sentence, and it's just you know what? Fuck it. Just end it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
So.
Is it when Valve announced Artifact, and then it was revealed to be a card game? It was aww.
Deck builder. Deck builder. Oh my god, that no more disappointing feeling than it's oh, this looks really cool. It's here are these cards. Get out of here. Go away.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of one of those things right now is that, like, you can promise the world, but I think that everybody's going to take the next 3-4 games, because this isn't their first game. I think Avengers was probably the first, like, do they know what they're doing with live service?
Avengers got, its general story mode was well liked. Its general basic gameplay was well liked, but its aggressive monetization and like loot based focus and the bad online, like it was there's really only
the absurdity of like upgrading the whole is kind of what sunk it.
It's
like, you're gonna give him pants that rip faster. What are you doing here?
I did think that the Mr. Fix-It skin was pretty cool, but that's neither here nor there. Ultimately, there really can only be like a few live services that really dominate, and so the fact of the matter is that a huge portion of the gaming industry's money and labor is going into these, and the metrics will just bear, I think, like if you just look at the basic amount of that versus what is successful, the vast majority of these will fail, and I don't think that's inherently like connected to their quality, because a lot of talented people are making these.
Yeah, I think the time to find a market though is just so tight right now.
But that's kind of where I'm going with this. I'm not convinced that there is a version of this that could succeed.
Yeah.
It's not even like
I guess another way of like framing this is, do you think, like, let me ask two questions. If Concord had had a more effective marketing campaign that took place over a longer period of time, that had a longer gap from beta to release so that player feedback got incorporated, that wasn't released, it wasn't first announced with a confusing trailer that was just a logo, do you think that game lasts longer than 2 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the second question is, do you think that game survives for longer than 2 years?
No.
I'm not.
And that's really the fundamental problem, because like for the amount of money they put in, you want that game to last longer than 2 years. Like you want that game to be part of people's regular rotation, and maybe it fades into obscurity after 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But you don't want it dead after only 2, regardless. And maybe you can like release something in the vein of Concord that stays alive for longer than 2 weeks. If you like change everything else about it, like you have more appealing character designs, you market it better.
You tell the lore.
Maybe even it's free to play instead of paid. Like maybe that thing lasts longer. But is it set up for long-term financial success? And that is where I think there are a lot more questions.
You need to
especially
get
if it's
almost people like into the game without there even being a game. I mean, you do web comics, you get that secret whatever,
get that media mix going.
Yeah,
man.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, you get the secret level episode out before you release Concord.
Wow, it's a cool world. I want to go play in that. I want to check out what that world's about.
Concord will be known for years because of the sheer depth and severity of its failure. But like this entire landscape is littered with games that will be forgotten that were also failures. It's I keep going back to the economics of it, and this is the thing I've been thinking of since the actual cancellation and shutdown were announced. Like that, this is just, it is an encapsulation of the fact that this entire industry is an economic model that makes no sense and will be burning itself out. Huge amounts of production that just can't rein themselves in, but at the same time are selling them to a crowd that is being trained to not value the intrinsic worth of the things that they're experiencing. Like huge amounts of focus for a long-term plan, but like Concord had a huge amount of plans for like extra seasons and extra like cinematics. There are probably a lot of the cinematics like already made that you're never going to see.
Yeah.
Like And that's
Maybe they'll leak on the internet like that David E. Kelly Wonder Woman pilot.
oh yeah,
And then we'll all like watch them later and cringe.
yeah,
Do y'all want to know something, like, to your point, Wolfman, something really kind of sad that puts a pretty fine point on this? I was looking at the, as of August 2024, like the top 10 games on PS4 and PS5 that have the highest amount of monthly active users.
Mhm.
All currently, all but one of those top 10 games are live service titles.
Yep.
And of those live service titles, and of those, only 3 of those top 10 had their series debut in the last 10 years. Fortnite 2020 from 2017 early access to 2020 depending, Valorant 2020, Rocket League barely makes it because it turns 10 next year. The only game on there that is not a live service is Minecraft.
And even Minecraft's
effectively a live
it's-
service in a
Like,
lot of ways.
even then it's pushing it, but that's
Yeah.
one of the few that you can, like, you don't need anything else really.
That's really that's actually like eye-opening, like to see, and I think that's where this push probably came from, is like, hey, the things that are making us money, here's what they are, right? But I mean, none of those games are easy to make. Minecraft was lightning in a bottle.
Well, and something else too is that of those games, let's see, it is 1, 2, 3. I made a list. 4. 4 of those games have IPs that are over 20 years old.
Yeah.
None of them, Valorant and Fortnite are the only, Valorant and Fortnite are the only ones that had their debut within the last 10 years.
Man.
Like, basically what this list tells me is that the future of gaming is the past.
Yeah. Kind of like the movies, right? I mean, doesn't it feel like that sometimes too?
And it's
Oh, yeah, for sure.
so bleak to look at. Like, it was one of those things I had a general feeling about, but then, like, when I looked at I just happened to look this up, and I, like, did, some back of the napkin math, and I was just like, is this it?
Yeah.
Is this people? Like, this is it?
Were you looking at that list from 2023? Because
I was looking at one initially for I think August and then September of 2024, but I did look one up for all of 2023, and
it's sobering.
Like 6 of the titles from 2023, like the entire year, highest monthly active users, 6 of those titles from last year are also on this list still as of 2024.
Wow.
Basically, everybody playing the same 6 or 7 games.
Exactly. And so, like, it's I actually have another. There's some of those that are fascinating. It like stuff. Which ones are there? Very few are from that actual year. There's actually another one that I thought was possibly helpful here for statistic. So Sony's push started before 2022, but it was announced in 2022. Their attempt to push to live service. In 2019, Sony spent 12%, I guess, of its money on developing live service IP, and 88% of the money it had allocated, or I guess, I really said this like I cart before the horse. Sony has a large amount of money that it spends developing IP. In 2019, 12% of that was on live services, and 88% was on traditional games. In 2022, their plan was to shift the split from 55 live service, 45 traditional in 2023, and then 2025 for it to be 60-40, meaning...
What?
Yeah.
Wow, that's...
So, essentially...
It's a big shift.
Yeah. This is... And the thing is that this is because everyone looks at Fortnite and sees that it's at the top of the list, and everyone looks at Fortnite and sees all the money it makes through sales, and no one looks at how badly Fortnite is run and the fact that it doesn't actually make money.
But it's also an ad for
other things.
Epic's engine, yeah.
And
like a big
but
tech demo.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is everyone is gunning for this one thing, but this one thing isn't actually an economic solution, it's an economic trap.
Yeah. And like,
it's a very expensive ad.
Yeah.
For a product that is hyper popular.
Yeah,
like you could think of this, you could see this model working for actually something like game streaming, like Microsoft. Like the dirty secret of Microsoft's like xCloud initiative is that it's effectively an ad for Azure. Like, look at all the real-time stuff you can do, and they'll sell that kind of platform to someone who wants to do real-time business analytics and spend a lot of money for it.
Making them money right now.
Yeah, Azure is where Microsoft makes bank, to the point that they spend a lot of money setting up data centers in countries around the world so they can contract with local governments, because you typically can't move like federal government data outside national borders. That is why they do what they do. So like a lot of money can get spent on what are effectively ads, but they have to be for a product that is in super duper high demand, or for which you can generate super duper high demand. Like, not everyone can make a Fortnite, not because they lack the ability to make like satisfying third-person shooters, but because they don't have another product to sell on the like magnitude of importance of Unreal Engine.
Right, and I think that's what you're seeing now with Microsoft, is they're saying, hey, Game Pass is cool, but you know what's cooler? Azure. And Sony's like, yep, you're right. It is cool. We'll put Sony stuff on there. And then I think that's what you're seeing with Fortnite. Hey, you can make these games in Unreal, and that's what we use, and it's an ad for it, which is kind of an interesting way to do things right now. But I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting, but it even lost, like, Epic was not making enough money to keep its workforce intact, and had to do mass layoffs. Yeah. I mean, that's in part because they wasted a lot of money on other initiatives. That
like the lawsuit, for instance.
Oh, God.
That lawsuit with Apple, which was dumb on so many levels. Then, like, the Epic Game Store has not been a financial success. They spent a lot of money buying Bandcamp and then spinning it off again. They bought Harmonix. Yeah. Like, these things, like, cost a lot of money.
Yeah, Epic is... Like, I don't think there is a world where, like, the way Fortnite is structured, it ultimately is profitable, but it's especially extra not profitable because it's run by Epic.
Yeah. Tim Sweeney is not necessarily the most canny businessman out there.
Yeah.
Regrettably, but has been fortunate that...
Regrettably, Fortnite is firmly in the zeitgeist because of the amount of, like, celebrities that played it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Had
that's part of it.
In Fortnite. I mean, even Minecraft. Charlie XCX had a pandemic concert in Minecraft.
Yeah.
With 100 gex and shit.
It's part of the appeal of Fortnite is, you learn the game, you're going to drop it with the friends, and, that's just kind of something that I think...
There's something that's, like, so illustrative of the difference between different artists, with Ariana Grande performing in Fortnite and Charlie XCX performing in Minecraft.
Music, but yeah, they had a concert in Minecraft.
Yeah.
I think that what this, we're asking about beyond that, what does Sony's pivot away from live service looks like? I mean, because we all know that, like, stuff like God of War and stuff is crazy expensive, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
ideally, I would like for them to go back to what they did basically to bring it back to folklore, I would like them to go back to having first-party studios that make smaller
Yeah.
B, AA, or even B tier games that are just weird, and the teams are smaller, and the games are smaller, but the concept is more focused, and they can put out like more of them. I would like for them to go
So
back.
you want Japan studio
Yeah.
to reopen, essentially.
Please, my God.
Does
Not
it
fair.
kind of feel like though that right now, like the, I guess I would say the RPG studio feels like it's kind of shifted towards Microsoft, and Sony feels like they're the like action RPG, or like I don't know what you call it, that like
Sony never had RPG makers working for it
Yeah.
directly. It was always that like Square mainly as like the maker of your big RPGs, and then you get your smaller ones from like Koei Tecmo, Gust, etc. Those went to PlayStation by default because they're the only ones who had the major presence in Japan. Nintendo hardware in the Wii era wasn't powerful enough to run these things. So these things became PlayStation exclusive by default. PlayStation no longer has these things as exclusive because they never really went up in fidelity from the Wii U era. So they fit on Switch in most cases. In cases where they don't, Japanese developers are now porting most of their games to PC. And they're also porting a lot of them to Xbox. So PlayStation no longer has these things as exclusives. And where previously they didn't need to go out and buy the RPG studios to secure them as exclusives, now they don't have exclusive RPGs at all.
That struck me about all of the trailers and stuff for Metaphor with that big fat Xbox logo that kept showing up. I'm like, where's the PlayStation logo?
Like
I know I'm watching the
Metaphor
YouTube channel. What's that logo doing there?
Metaphor would have been a PlayStation exclusive by default if it had come out in 2015.
Yep.
Not because it wouldn't have run on Xbox or like PlayStation money had it, because there was no point in putting it elsewhere. But we live in different times now where people expect to be able to play their RPGs on a PC or on an Xbox, or if they're smaller RPGs on a Switch. And Sony can no longer guarantee that they're just going to get these things by virtue of being the Japanese console. And like in part, this is their fault. They never money had these things because they never thought it was worth it. They moved away from Japanese development, recentered their development to around the United States.
And
they've lost a lot of what made them unique in the process.
Go ahead.
We all know, we all know the meme of like, I want games that are shorter and look less good by people who are paid more, and I really think that this is just something that like Sony, if it's going to be sustainable, needs to accept that it can't just be making either these extremely expensive things or this live service plan that very clearly doesn't really work with their in-house style.
Yeah,
and
that's a huge point. With their in-house style, it does not work.
But also may not work.
But like, why doesn't it work?
I think.
Why can't they find presumably they don't have to make. Sorry?
Because most of their live service, like when you think of a live service for Sony, insofar as it had one, you thought Street Fighter, you thought Tekken, you thought Guilty Gear, you thought Blaze Blue, or whatever the fuck that game is.
And outside of fighting games, FF14 and Fortnite, apparently. I also think I think I'm going to actually take what I said back a little bit. I think it doesn't metaphorically and artistically and stylistically work with their in-house style at all. And it's insane that Naughty Dog spent like a year and a half trying to make a Last of Us live service.
Yeah. Sure. But like,
I don't think a pivot is smart at all. I think it's incredibly dangerous, and to what extent they may find success, it will be either fleeting or compromised by the costs it takes to make that.
That's what I think. I think for me, it's the
Yeah,
cost.
well-
I think when you see how much money Bungie lost in any other live service game, they're dumping money into it because it's not. You push the game out the door and you push a very fine, perfect product like a lot of like the Naughty Dog or the, that's Sony's bread and butter, right? Now just keep doing that same thing for 5 years. That's the hard part, right?
It's
Like,
it is. I imagine, and I think like testimonials from people who've worked on these, it's soul crushing to a certain extent.
yeah, you have to keep delivering. The time you don't deliver, now your game is dead. Can you pull it back? Okay, now you pulled it back. Okay, you got to keep delivering.
Sounds like a recipe for constant crunch.
Yeah, it is. And
I mean, on the note of like Sony having a specific house style, that style is very much a product of the PS4 era and continuing into the PS5 era, with a few exceptions here and there, like Astrobot. And
I would
Return.
also say the PS3, I think, is where you may start to see more of the shift.
Late PS3, yeah. Like coming out of like Uncharted 3, is where you start to really see it solidify, and it's a narrowing of what they used to do previously.
yeah.
Like what defines the Sony house style now is narrower than what you would have thought of as a Sony game in 2000.
Yeah, because you wouldn't even put the word shooter out there. I don't know if you'd put RPG out there. You're looking at that action adventure, Uncharted, Naughty Dog, God of War, Last of Us style, right? You want that. I'm almost playing a movie, and the production quality is insane, but replayability.
The point I'm trying to make is like what defines the Sony style is like something that has changed over time, and I think it can change again, but it's not going to change by telling people who are used to developing cinematic single player adventures to go develop like a gacha game with like anime waifus.
Yeah,
that is not what these people make. And like I think you can expand what the definition of a Sony game is by going and making acquisitions, but as we've seen with Embracer and Epic, going on an acquisition spree is its own curse.
Yep. Yeah, and you're seeing with Microsoft now.
Yeah, we saw it with Microsoft. We see it with Concord and Firewalk. Yeah. That was an acquisition, and it's an acquisition that not only has not paid dividends, has probably set those dividends on fire and thrown the ashes in the river.
That studio basically out as well.
That was their debut game.
Yeah.
That studio's gonna die.
I don't actually know. Like, I try to be pretty optimistic in general. It's very hard for me to imagine anything good coming out for the staff. I think it's fair to assume Firewalk is done.
Yeah.
But
now, is it their fault? Is it the fact that it got no marketing? That the game was released at a bad time? Like, that's the hard thing.
There's blame.
It's never the fault of developers in the end. It is ultimately they worked for 8 years trying to capitalize on a trend that moved beyond their ability to react to it. It was given absolutely no really help. It was given, to what extent it was given marketing, actively worked against them and was actively unhealthy and unhelpful. It's like I said, it doesn't. If it was a much more competent game, I think this would have still happened. If it had been marketed better, it would have lasted longer, but I don't think it would have survived. It would not be considered a successful game, just not whatever the hell this is now.
Well, I mean, given what, just going over again with the top 10 games as far as most active users, I don't know that there is a game that could come out. Because, I mean, based on this list, everybody's been playing the same game since 2016.
Yeah,
it's
depends on the initial development budget and the ongoing development budget, right? If a game maybe the game doesn't need to be in the top 10, maybe it can be in the top 30, and it's recouping its expenses.
Yeah, but that's clearly not
but,
what someone
like-
wanted with Concord. They clearly wanted.
Well, with Concord, if you spend however many years developing it, put in, like, pay big bucks to get an episode of Secret Level made for it, and
Silly,
spend
huh?
thousands and thousands of dollars on, like, expensive voice acting, mocap, cutscenes that will never come out. Like, you are expecting this to make
voice
bank.
actors. I hope there weren't any new ones. Like that was their first job.
Oof, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, imagine if your first job was Lennox in Concord.
Well, now I'm gonna actually have to look at the cast, but
You'll look it up and be like Matt Mercer and be like, okay,
But-
yeah,
Yeah,
he's
he'll
fine.
make it.
He's Union. He'll be fine.
yeah, but I'm gonna need to mute myself for a few seconds to do it, so you don't hear me typing. So while I do that, I do want to mention one statistic that I think gets this even what you've been saying even further, Quinley. In that 2023 survey, it says that 23% of playtime was spent on new games, as in games that are 2 years or younger. Of that 23%, over half was spent in annual sequels, so Madden or 2K. Only 8% was actually new non-annual titles. 8%.
God.
Wow. It's,
Also,
like
I was actually able to bring up the Concord IMDb page. I don't know who any of these people are, and it just occurred to me: isn't there a strike going on, or hasn't there been a strike going
there
on?
was
Yeah.
one
Sectors?
not too long ago,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Like, I don't
Um,
know who any of these people are.
Yeah.
So,
I'm actually on here too, and it is, on the other hand, giving me a fine chance to look at some of these excellent character names like It's, which is IT-Z.
I think it's Itsy.
Oh, Itsy. Oh.
Itsy, like Itsy Bitsy
Yeah,
Spider.
like Itsy Bitsy. Yeah. Who just looks like a cosplayer.
It's Zed, really. I think everyone else is saying it wrong.
Like-
It's Zed.
She just looks like a
It
cosplayer.
said it said.
I mean, I'm saying it's Zed.
Oh.
Y'all can call it Itsy because
Well, we can't find out now because the game doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
there's no way we could ever know. I will say it's canon. It's Zed.
It makes sense.
Or as Faith No More would say, it's it. I mean, some of these people are well known, like Derek Mears, Derek Phillips are like well known voice actors. I noticed Sumali Montano is in this. She was one of the player characters from Dragon Age Inquisition. These are people with like voice acting credits. I think they'll be fine. But
It's
still a shame.
I think the thing I kind of walk away from most of all about Concord is we always know companies are going to take the worst lesson possible from this, right? You know what I mean? So like you always know that the biggest headache is going to be on any studio that tries to do some kind of new IP that isn't tied to some type of existing product as a new company, and they're going to be like, well, look at Concord,
I do think that one interesting thing to note here is that a couple weeks ago, the CFO of Sony, not the whole company, not just the gaming studio, mentioned that
that'd be Hiroki Jitoki, right?
I believe so, yeah. Mentioned an issue, which is that Sony mentioned that he and Sony do recognize that they do have a problem with IP, and not like as just a game issue, but as a general corporate issue, that for like film franchises they have Spider-Man, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
For games they do have a bunch of series, but there's not really many. In fact, there may not even be any Sony franchises that have been supported like consistently well from PS1 to PS5. Usually,
Right.
No, absolutely not.
And you don't want to license it when you can't get it in house, right? So that's the big headache for everybody is like, yeah, it's real easy if you're Disney, that apparently, who knows what they're doing, but if you're not paying for your own license, you're kind of stuck,
Yeah.
It's also kind of why Sony, like, in a way, they've changed, like, every generation they have a new mascot, right? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
it was Crash in the PS1 era, and then I guess it ended up being Kratos in PS2, and
Yeah,
then
like kind of, but it's weird because God of War came out kind of pretty like almost halfway through the PS2's life cycle, maybe even a little further than that. So
it was near in the back half.
yeah. So
and then
I mean, hey, I guess.
and then in PS3 it's Nathan Drake, and then it's Joel, and then it's Ellie, and I guess maybe Astrobot's gonna be the new one.
It sure seems like they want.
So they finally have a mascot who's an actual mascot.
Yeah.
Well, like also like I think like one of the other ones for the PS1 that is actually in the Astrobot games is one of the apes from Ape Escape.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, like they are also like an unofficial mascot, but it's kind of one of those things, like a really good illustration kind of like the weird in-house style or IP-ish problem that they have is like, look at a game like PlayStation All-Stars and just how bizarre that looks.
That is
like, hey,
an insane roster.
what is he doing there?
Like,
You also have the Big Daddy from Bioshock.
but also not the Big Daddy that everyone likes, the one from Bioshock 2.
Yeah.
I like Bioshock too.
It's more interesting. It is definitely more interesting than the first one.
I think that where you're going to end up going, though, when just bringing it back to like live service games, I think you're going to get less, let's try this out within a studio that hasn't done this before, right? This is not the first type of, your first game your studio is not this, right? Get something out the door that's maybe live, that's maybe like, let's call it like live service adjacent, something like Helldivers, right? Which is
Helldivers is a full live service. That is not adjacent.
But I mean, it's co-op. There's been co-op games before.
I don't think you can call a game whose gimmick is that it reacts with like aggressive granularity to everything the player base
does.
All fake.
Like, that's all fake. That's
yeah,
what
but
it
doesn't. It doesn't change the.
It has like a live director. I think
if they say
like something like Space Marine 2 would be a better example.
But I mean, I don't think that your first game out the gate anymore is going to be, as a studio, is going to be a live service. That's a huge mistake, right? Build a fan base first, and then try something that's a little bit more grandiose. But they gave who got the Avengers live service? Was that Crystal
Dynamics?
Yeah,
it's Crystal Dynamics supported by Eidos.
There you go.
That actually.
Yeah.
Actually, Lovely Bones once sent me a picture a few years ago, and I reference this all the time because I think it's a good encapsulation of a lot of this. At some point, I guess she was in like a Best Buy or whatever, and found a picture of on a shelf. They had the Guardians of the Galaxy game by Square Enix on sale for $30. It was right after the game flopped, so it's kind of sad. Like the game died very swiftly. Became a flop, and that sucks, and it's kind of an example of that devaluation. And then right next to it was a dual pack of Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers, and that was $31.
Oh
dear,
man!
And that isn't that the thing, right? Like, it doesn't. At a certain point, this thing was a complete steal, and presumably no one wanted it.
Wow.
That's why I think going free to play or going even cheaper it has benefits, but it only has so many benefits.
So for a really funny example of that, for a while Square Enix was running a promotion on Steam where it was cheaper to buy various Octopath 2 bundled with various Day Life than it was to buy Octopath Traveler 2 by itself. Yeah. Meaning that Square Enix was implicitly paying you to play various Day Life.
Yeah, because it launched on PC and on mobile, and I think I forget if the mobile game actually even did well, but like I remember looking kind of forward to Various Daily Life, and then I read all the reviews, and they're just like, this mode of game does not work on as like.
Oh, it's not Various Daily Life. That would be a title that makes sense. It's called Various Day Life.
Oh, really? It's not even Daily Life?
No, it's Various Day Life.
I've been reading that wrong. Holy shit!
It's so good. I love these. I love these titles.
Oh my god.
We don't get nonsense titles anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, that's a lie. We get things like Tales of Arise, which makes no sense as a title.
Various Day Life might be the most Square Enix title ever, even more than like Kingdom Hearts 358 Days Over 2.
God.
Because it doesn't need it doesn't have a colon, it doesn't have an of. It's just 2 words. It should be normal, but then you realize that those 2 words are various, and then a word called day life.
Yeah,
I think
It's so good.
Most, it should have been one of those games, but whatever happened to Dark Dreams Don't Die? Remember that one?
That was by
D4.
Yeah.
Dark Dreams Don't Die. That was by Swearing.
D4 was what it was released as, I think. Dark Dreams Don't Die.
Yeah, it's D4
They're like
subtitled Dark Dreams Don't Die, which was later
God damn it.
parodied by Leisure Suit Larry as Wet Dreams Don't Dry.
And I know this because for some damn reason, Leisure Suit Larry games are on sale on the Nintendo Switch eShop all the time.
That is a niche market.
The sense of thing.
Do they don't have the guts to put it in like the official Switch news.
Yeah.
They'll put weird promos like turn up for turnips.
Yes.
Where they were literally advertising pick up these turnip filled games, which is not a genre. Turnip is not a game genre. Okay, don't talk about Turnip Boy and like tax evasion or robs a bank. I know that the Turnip Boy series exists, but you cannot convince me that Turnip is a game genre.
It's not. It's not a game genre, but like as someone who has spent a decent amount of time making stupid listicles for a video game website, I really appreciate. Not to mention stupid prompts for a pop culture website.
Yeah, but like, who's going on the eShop thinking, you know what? I would really like a game full of green peppers today.
I think
that's what I feel like playing.
I think it's really more just like it's basically just like clickbait, but like really charming.
I think it's less about the turnips itself and more like what it signals to the player, the fact that these games have turnips in them.
Yeah.
Like, you're the kind of person...
Like, I'm not morally opposed to this. I just find it...
You immediately clock that as, oh, farming sims, or cutesy RPG, cozy game. Like, you're immediately
exactly
that.
And also, Turnip Boy commits tax evasion.
When someone tells me...
Because he's a
I
turnip.
played that one and Turnip Boy robs a bank. I recommend both. They're great.
Yeah, because, like, when I think of turnips, I think of, like, Animal Crossing or Super Mario Brothers 2. Or, so, like, cozy games.
Or robbing a bank.
Kid-friendly games. And if I'm in the mood, that actually could work.
I'm wondering if, like, going back to, like, what Sony could pivot to, like, whatever ill-advised pivot they could take, I'm wondering if they would, like, something I think about a lot, like, with Nintendo as far as just how strong their branding is, and kind of in direct opposition to Sony. There are 2 places where you can play Mario.
Yeah.
The Switch and your phone. That's it.
And they clearly don't really care about you playing Switch or Mario on your phone.
Yeah, they don't care, but I have to wonder if we're gonna go along like with, Kappa's, sick line of thinking, like, what's the worst thing they could possibly learn? And Sony just pivots to mobile.
Yeah.
Ooh, God.
This is where the money is. You all have phones, don't you?
I mean, they have a mobile Lemmings game, right? Remember, Sony does own the Lemmings.
Which is weird, because Rockstar should own Lemmings.
Well, Rockstar at this point doesn't... I imagine that's also kind of a branding thing. They're just like, you can keep that one.
They're cowards.
Yeah, if Rockstar had any guts, they would release a Lemmings game with as much sex and violence as GTA 6.
I would also
like those Lemmings should be
Like
fucking.
item like a Lemmings T-shirt or something. Like at least acknowledge it.
Oh my god, what if in GTA 6 you could go into an actual arcade and play a Lemmings game?
Yakuza shit.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
exactly.
That is Yakuza shit.
Yeah.
Like they should.
Hype
It's
of shit.
Yeah, they
Arcades don't really exist in America anymore, though.
yeah.
Unless they're like the kind of arcade where like they're really, really niche. Like Houston has one called Cidercade, where you go and you buy it. They only serve cider, and you just buy like a little ticket, and then you can play whatever games you want for free, but only for a set amount of time, and then you have to leave. Like the only other like kind of traditional arcade is the Funplex off Beechnut, and I hear, as far as I know, they're still
either you play like
there, so I don't go to the Funplex.
okay, so like you're at a Dave and Buster's, or you're at a barcade. Like
Maybe
those are your options in
like,
North America.
Yeah.
This game
Like,
has been developed.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say this thing's been in development for like a decade, so the smartest thing to do would for them to capitalize on something that was big earlier and isn't so big now, much like Concord, and instead have a part where the two characters have to infiltrate a live video game like competition, right?
It's like the Gauntlet, or
no. Like in my mind, it's literally not even that. It's just there's people playing Lemmings in front of thousands of audience members.
Oh my god.
Okay, because I was gonna say if you want to make a video game about something that was popular 10 years ago but no longer exists, you could make a game about Rooster Teeth. I know. I'm just twisting the knife tonight.
There is actually another statistic I thought might be useful for this. This isn't related to Concord, but I did know about it like elsewhere. So you know how like there's like you can play Elden Ring on mobile, and you can play like Resident Evil Village on mobile.
Steam Deck.
Yeah, no. I mean like not even Steam Deck. I mean like tablets.
Like native iOS ports for
those
for iPad.
sell for thousands of copies and no more.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, like, because everyone assumes that the mobile audience will be there, so they put all of this work into these ports, and the ports don't sell anything.
Yeah, and I think more and more people are understanding that the sales data that is coming out is kind of depressing when you see what it is selling, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and these things are that's about the order of magnitude that Concord sold at.
Yeah.
It was like one of these mobile ports that everyone says is a useless disaster.
Yeah, and like because they release these numbers about mobile ports that are like, oh, it sold this, it sold that, but then it starts to, like, people start doing the math. They're like, wait, these things almost always lose money, So I don't know, like, 'cause I see there's some weird stuff on there, like, I don't know, like you see like Baldur's Gate or something. Like, I'm not playing that on my phone, But yeah, I don't know. Every time I see Pocket Edition, I just know, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I still kind of want to see, like you mentioned one, I think either last time or time before that, about like really being interested in a study or like, a white paper about like where people play games and like on console, like whether if they're like if they save certain games to play on like their phone mute or something. Like, I cannot fathom why the fuck you would want to play Elden Ring on a tablet.
Right,
It's
yeah.
nuts.
Like, or
mostly for like the challenge and masochism of it, because like there are people who will buy stuff for the lulz, right? Like, I'm gonna play Elden Ring with DK bongos.
Yeah, but at least the DK bongos let you play the drums. Like, this is not. Yeah, this is it.
Oh, when I'm through with my phone, I'm treating it like.
Yeah, I just like, when you see, okay, yeah, I can play Baldur's Gate on my Steam Deck. I just don't know that I would ever play Baldur's Gate on my Steam Deck. You know what I mean? It's the type of game I'm sitting there next to my computer reading every line of dialogue. I'm not, now then I'm playing Madden on my Steam Deck, but I'm not playing Madden on my computer. I don't know why. Some of these things just make sense,
I still remember someone showing me for the first time GTA San Andreas running on a phone, and it was super impressive for the novelty because it didn't happen all that long after the original version of San Andreas came out, just a few years. But the first question that arises is, how do you control this game?
It already controls.
How does it work? And there's a little a little region in one corner of the screen that serves as your wasties.
Yeah,
and it's how is this comfortable?
It's not. Somebody who has played mobile games where they have the little touch control stick thing. It's like a little. It's trying to simulate an 8-way gate, and it does it very, very, very poorly. Like, there are people playing Tekken on mobile. I have no idea why. Like, why are you playing Tekken on mobile? Jesus Christ. It goes badly. But more to the point, mobile games are something that you can just passively play. You don't really have to pay that close attention to them, which is why they're really easy to play on commute, because you're just wasting time. That's all you're doing.
As opposed to, say, Elden Ring, which can be very fun when you play it without paying attention, but is not the ideal.
Yeah, it requires a degree of focus, to get the intended experience out of that game. Mobile games, most of the time, you're just tapping.
You click the red dots, right? You go from red dot to red dot, collect your red dot, move on to your next one.
I mean, do you think Sony could pivot to that kind of experience? Right?
I think
I don't know.
Does the skill exist
to
make these kinds of things? Because designing these perfect mobile loops is an art in and of itself.
Yeah.
I think if Sony, or rather a team at Sony, probably one that already exists and is already established, if they were interested in doing a mobile game and they decided to start it from the idea of what can this be as a mobile game, I think they are a company filled with talented developers. I think it's entirely possible. I just don't think that that's necessarily something that they would do to focus on. And honestly, I think that makes sense, because even though mobile is the world's biggest market, it's also a market that is incredibly unsafe and incredibly volatile. And
we talk about the top 10 games on it was games on PlayStation or games at Steam that you were talking about earlier. But in the mobile space, it's Candy Crush and everything else.
Mm-hmm. And then that you want to talk about chasing a leader. They've been chasing that leader for 10 years, 15 years now. I mean, it's
Candy Crush was like a copy of Bejeweled. And Bejeweled is there are so many different Bejeweled likes. As somebody who was the other day trying to find the original one,
and you got a generation of people now who have grown up playing Candy Crush, and that's mobile gaming to them at this point.
It's at this point people who grew up playing Candy Crush and are passing it on to their kids.
I'll get you.
But Concord is unfortunately something that we will not be able to pass on to our children. And they will never know the joy of becoming a free gunner. On that note, if you'd like to keep up to date with the podcast, if you are one of our children or not one of our children, doesn't matter. Either way, you can follow us on our website at avocadogamescast.wordpress.com. On that website, we post every episode along with a link dump that fact checks some of what we say and leaves some other things that we say completely untouched, unmolested, just for you to enjoy. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube Music, or Spotify. Just search for Avocado Gamescast. For listeners who have pointed this out, yes, I'm aware that the links to some of the episodes through YouTube Music and Spotify are currently broken, and I will fix that at some point in the coming days. Or I might have already fixed it by the time you listen to this episode.
You're seeing a time capsule from the past.
Yeah.
a time capsule from September 15th. Oh God, September 15th. It was September 14th when we started recording.
This is almost 2 a.m. here in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's 1 a.m. here in Houston.
Look at you on Central Time.
Yeah.
It's still bright and early for you.
Yeah. I could get some more hours of Cloud Meadow in.
I'm sure
Yeah, that is definitely not putting you to sleep, if you know what I mean.
You shouldn't be, and you're in trouble.
Yeah, but God, I moved my window away. Now I don't know what to say for the outro. I forget my words. Well, also make sure you check out the Avocado, fe-avocado.org, where we talk about not just Cloud Meadow, but also other games like
may not involve porn or 50 Cent or Sumo Village.
I was going to say... No, I'm not going to mention that game. We're going to leave that a couple of podcasts ago. We don't have to talk about it again. But, you know, we are all clients of Old Hold On Farm over at the Avocado. So, you know how we do things. Thank you all for joining me on this discussion of Concord and everything else we talked about today. We will see you next time, listeners. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening. And I was going to insert the Concord slogan here, but I don't think Concord lasts long enough. What's the slogan?
What is it?
Yeah, what is it?
You gotta make it
Does
up.
Concord have a slogan? Okay, now Concord slogan. No, I'm just getting the slogan for the airplane, which is "Arrive before you leave,"
There you go.
which is kind of appropriate for how long that game lasted. So, to our listeners, arrive before you leave. We will see you next time.
Absolutely.